Council's ProLifeCon 2015, A Year for Hope. My name is Irina Grosu, and I am the Director of the Center for Human Dignity here at Family Research Council. And I focus on sanctity of life issues from conception until natural death. Boy, do we have a star-studded cast for you today. So hang in for the ride and take out your Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, just take it out and start tweeting because the people coming up here are going to be awesome. This is a very special year for us. It's our 10th annual event. And just to put into perspective, 10 years ago, Twitter did not exist. It was founded in 2006, and YouTube was just born the same year that we started. And Facebook was just 1 year old. So we have been here since the beginning of social media. So that's why we are the premier conference for the pro-life online community. So to celebrate, we are joined by friends old and new alike from the past 10 years. And we look forward to the opportunities ahead of us because we have really a great reason to have hope in 2015. So I wanted to share a little bit with you why I think that 2015 is the year for hope. And these are my 5 reasons. Number 1, the pro-life momentum is on our side. And we have to keep that in mind because the pro-life midterm wave washed over everything. So many Republicans won in the midterms. And I wanted to share some of the facts with you about what took place. We have now pro-life majorities in both the House and the Senate. And also in state after state, Republicans won, and they have majorities in both houses and at the state legislature. Also, we have at least 25 states that have Republican governors. So we are doing really, really well. And so this should mean progress both at the state and the federal level on pro-life bills. The second reason is there are 5 pro-life women that completely blew them out of the water, their opponents decidedly. And they are so on fire, they are young, they are pro-life, and they are a great way to show that America is changing. And they are Elise Stanek, Republican from New York, Mia Love, Republican from Utah, and Mimi Walters, Republican from California. And in the House, we have Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. So the idea that there's a war on women falls really flat in the face of the fact that look at how many women are young, on fire, vibrant, and pro-life. And so actually in this Congress, in the 114th Congress, we have more pro-life women serving than ever in the history of the U.S. Congress. And so we have very much great reason to hope in 2015. Also, in 2014, we had 15 states enact 26 abortion laws, including provisions. These added up to altogether, since 2010, we have passed 231 new abortion laws. So that's really great reason to hope. The pro-life momentum is moving in our direction. And also between 2011 and 2013, more pro-life bills were signed into law than in the entire previous decade. So especially in the last few years, we've had a great amount of laws being passed. Number 2 reason is young adults are pro-life. And this has been shown. There's a Gallup poll showing that 18 to 29-year-olds are one of the most pro-life groups in the age ranges. And I think we see that because of the shockwaves of abortion has had on our generation. And that includes our missing siblings, our missing classmates, and we are showing that the young people are pro-life and we are moving in the right direction. The third reason is the majority of Americans are pro-life. There's a Marist poll, 84% of Americans want to make sure that abortion is either limited to the first 3 months or not even legal at all. So overall, we are on the winning side. Number 4, and this is where I'd like to show you, technology is on our side. Not only do we have the social media to share the truth, but as you will see, this is a paper that I just published on fetal pain. We have ultrasound technology. It's really hard to say that that's not a baby. So the arguments that were made in the 70s don't come in light of the technology that we have currently right now. And here we go. And also, because of technology, we are able to save babies a lot earlier on. This baby actually did not make it, but he was 17 weeks post-fertilization. But you can see the development of the baby, which we didn't really have access to before. And and we did save this baby who was born at 21 weeks post-fertilization. So technology is on our side, medical technology as well as our ultrasound technology. Number 5 reason is that truth is on our side. And I'd like to show you a website that we launched along with Charlotte Lozier Institute. It's called Obamacare Abortion. And as we know, Obamacare has not been very transparent. Well, we are working to make it transparent to see what plans cover elective abortion. So you can click on any of the states and find out. So for example, we click on Rhode Island, we see no insurance companies in Rhode Island are pro-life. So this brings transparency, and especially today because we're going to be voting on the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act and the Abortion Full Disclosure Act. It's important that we use technology to share and spread the truth. So overall, the legislative momentum is on our side. The majority of Americans are pro-life, and we have both technology and the truth on our side. So let's get out there and fill every nook and cranny of the internet with the pro-life message, because we need to saturate the internet with the truth, because people need to hear it, and we have the truth on our side. Social justice begins in the womb, and we cannot stand silent, and we need to use every single means possible, including now we have the opportunity with all of these different outlets for social media. So these are the reasons why I see that this is going to be the year of hope. So before further ado, I'm just going to start the program by introducing our first guest, which is Star Parker. I will tell you a little bit about Star. She is the founder and president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, a public policy think tank that promotes market-based solutions to fight poverty. She is also a nationally syndicated columnist. Before involvement in social activism, Star had 7 years of firsthand experience in the grip of welfare dependency. After consulting on federal welfare reform in the mid-90s, she founded Urban Cure to bring new ideas to policy discussions on how to transition America's poor from government dependency. Please welcome Star Parker.
Good morning. It is so wonderful to be here with you this morning, especially as we're here to celebrate life and one of the first pro-life march opportunities in quite some time that were not covered in snow. Those of us that were out there yesterday got a taste of Washington, D.C., but today it looks like we'll have a clear day to march yet again to tell the nation and the world that abortion may be legal, but it's not lawful in God's eyes, and we're going to do all that we can to end it. One thing that was not in my bio sketch right now is why I am so adamant about this particular movement in our country to rid ourselves of such a horrible, horrible crime against humanity. Prior to receiving Christ, I got caught up in the lies of the left, including their lie about abortion. And I continued to go in and out of abortion clinic after clinic until it wasn't after the 4th time that I had a gut instinct way down deep inside that there must be something wrong with killing your offspring. Maybe the country didn't have it right. Maybe that I was hearing was not right. And I then made a decision within myself outside of Christ that I just wasn't going to do that anymore. It was my birth control. And in that decision, I suppose it began the process for God to begin to work in my life. I had not changed my behavior, so I was pregnant again within a very short period of time. And that's how I ended up in and out of welfare that you did hear in my bio. 3.5 years consistently, because I did get pregnant again, not married, and watched my life over that next 3.5 years go into a little dark hole. And that's where God found me, got me up, cleaned me up, got me into school, graduated with a degree in marketing and international business, started one. That business was destroyed during the 1992 Los Angeles riots, but it helped me transition then into social activism and reform. So today I run CURE here in Washington, D.C. We're at 13th and F, and CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, is a policy think tank. So we work on initiatives that reduce the hand of government in poverty. We look at market-based solutions to fight poverty. So when it comes to protecting life, that's one of the first steps out of poverty is self-government, understanding that each and every one of us have an obligation to each other and to the Lord to be self-sufficient and to be responsible with the choices that we make. It's important to me to be here because to first of all meet the bloggers of the country and pro-life is exciting, because internet is something that we all have to learn, and those of us that have a little years behind us have to engage ourselves and or go find our grandchildren to figure out how to even work our little iPhones. Mine happens to be not here today, so I have to kind of do it myself. One of the things that I was asked to speak about is to the pro-life blogger community is what we're already doing at CURE in this internet world, in this worldwide web, so that we can push out messaging on life and other issues that matter to God. What we do is what most organizations do is we have a Twitter account. I'm at Star Parker. We do the Facebook. I'm Star Parker for Freedom. We do the email. And in fact, I met someone earlier that said, I get all of your emails. We email out at least twice a week. We try not to overwhelm our audience with emails. One of the emails is my nationally syndicated column, because in addition to running CURE, I write a syndicated column. And after the newspapers across the country get that column, we then place it ourselves with our market, as well as other web opportunities, including World at Daily, Town Hall, Red State, lots and lots of people. I don't even want to begin to list. Even yourselves may even carry my column or post that, and I thank you for that. We do have a blog. Our blog is called blackcommunitynews.com. And the reason that we established this blog over a year ago is because it's extremely important to CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, to push our message into the communities that are the least to hear the message, but are the most interrupted in their lives because of the aggression of the left in their communities, in passing these policies. When you think on abortion alone, the impact that it's had on the black community leaves many of us restless and sleepless as a result of how they've been targeted by organizations like Planned Parenthood, who we know now 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are within walking distance of our most hardest hit and vulnerable communities, and we want that to stop. We want the information out, but unlike those of us that push honesty into the marketplace, there are those that will lie about us all of the time, and it's very difficult then to get clear information around the gatekeepers in some of these communities, in specifically the black community for us. So we developed out a blog that specifically targets this community, and Urban CURE takes a very minor role there. We blend a combination of political thought with Christian thought, and particularly on these social issues. We want the communities that we're trying to serve know that there's information available for them on abortion. We want them to know there's hope for them, that there's life after abortion for them, that God is a God of redemption, and it just takes them to confess their fault before Him, that He will then forgive them. When it comes to what we're doing on this particular issue, why you are here, as I mentioned, CURE is a think tank. We're looking at driving the government out of charity. We really believe that the answer to poverty is freedom and personal responsibility. It's not a welfare state, and we want the government out of every aspect of trying to tell people how to live their lives, from housing policy to healthcare policy to education policy to welfare policies to even retirement policy. When you're looking in the face of a scripture that says a good man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren, and yet the poor, the only little bit they have, they force it into a little black hole that they don't own. We want them to have personal retirement accounts. But we also are a very pro-life organization. In fact, I tell people we're more than a pro-life organization. We are an anti-abortion organization. So the current project that we're working on is a post-Gosnell Senate project. The details of that project is we want to strengthen current law. Current law from 2002 has a Born Alive Infants Protection Act. The Born Alive Infants Protection Act passed through the House, passed through the Senate. And what's interesting about the Born Alive Infants Protection Act of 2002 that was signed into law is that by President Bush is that there was a voice vote in the Senate, and every senator voted for it, including Senator Hillary Clinton, including Senator Harry Reid. The list is long about those that are on the hard left that thought that when a baby is born alive after abortion, perhaps we shouldn't kill it. Well, when we found that the debate and during the debate process that it had no penalties, we also found Gosnell era there was no place for them to go. If those of you that were following the trial of Gosnell, Kermit Gosnell up in Philadelphia, he did exactly what we don't want to happen to these babies once they're born, to kill them. And there was no recourse in law for those that were witnessing this in that clinic to go. They tried to tell. Every photo we had out of that trial and for that trial came from a staffer. So we want penalties in the Born Alive Infants Protection Act, and we're doing all that we can as an organization to get that work done. We also want whistleblower language. We believe that the most vulnerable have been targeted for these abortion clinics, and as we've learned from Abby Johnson and others, that this is not a world that, those that are strengthened through family and faith operate in. And so we, as an organization, see them as most vulnerable in our society. And this is where people like abortionist Gosnell go to get their workers. They go into the gutter of America and get the most vulnerable. And so we want them to be able to come out of those environments and healthy. And we want them to be able to tell. And we want whistleblower language so that they will be protected in law in that particular act. In closing, I see my time is running out. And I welcome you to help us get this done. We've got all the data. We've got all the research. We even have a chart that shows how, you see that one line? This is post-Gosnell, how reckless these abortionists across the country have become in this new environment where they're maiming, they're murdering, and they're molesting women that come in to kill their offspring. In closing, I just want to very quickly remind you of post-Gosnell, what we were able to submit into testimony through one of my colleagues, Dr. Day Gardner from the National Black Pro-Life Union. Day put in testimony to the United States Congress as we began this campaign a year ago. Because she sat in the courtroom the whole time. And I don't have time to read all of her testimony, but there's one part I just want you to know so that you'll get a sense of urgency in this moment that we're in. She said, I heard gruesome testimony about abortion clinic workers about how Gosnell would deliver fully developed, viable children and then turn them over to cut their spinal cords. Gosnell even joked that one baby was big enough to walk to the bus stop. He then cut that little boy's neck and tossed him in a shoebox. It was no big deal to him to kill these children, to slash their necks as they struggled, as they strained, as they cried. And if that wasn't grotesque enough, he severed off their tiny feet of several babies and kept them displayed in jars on a shelf as some sort of souvenir. Gosnell stored the bodies. And you remember that during the trial that he had two different rooms for the women to go into, the white room and the black room. And in the black room, this is where these jars were on a shelf as souvenirs. Gosnell stored the bodies of children in milk jugs and large soft drink containers and juice bottles. 47 babies were found frozen in the refrigerator freezer, the same freezer, of course, where the staff keep their lunch. They had to be thawed out like TV dinners so that the coroner could determine their first and last moments of life. Employee Linda Williams actually played with a baby who survived a botched abortion for several minutes and then snipped the child's neck. Sherry West, a former employee, testified at Gosnell's trial last April, stating that she witnessed a baby screaming, lying on a shelf after having been delivered during an abortion procedure at the clinic. In her testimony, she described the baby as being 18 to 24 inches long and one of the largest babies that she had seen aborted there. It goes on. My time is up. We must stop this Holocaust. We've got to end abortion in our country. We've got to end abortion in our world. Thank you.
Maria Cahill was crowned Miss Delaware in 2011, and she went on to compete against 51 other women in the Miss America 2012. Maria began her pro-life ministry at a very young age, attending the March for Life every year, speaking to her peers, and praying outside of abortion facilities. After winning Miss Delaware, less than 6 months later, the talk was released on YouTube, starting controversy. During her year as Miss Delaware, she was instructed to remain silent on her pro-life views, being told that speaking about this issue would hinder her chances of becoming Miss America. Maria continued to speak and spread the love of life, liberty, and happiness for every single one of God's children. Please help me welcome Maria Cahill.
How's everyone doing today? You know, it's early, but, I'm not a coffee drinker. I wish I was. This is the time for me to be a coffee drinker. But it's actually very exciting for me to be here because, like Irina was saying, 3 years ago today, I attended the March for Life as Miss Delaware. And I just got back from competing at Miss America a week earlier, I believe. And part of that decision to go to the March for Life, it was pretty hard for me, actually. I didn't know if I should go as Miss Delaware. At that time, my board of directors had already told me to stay silent on my views, which, side note, didn't really make any sense because just the year before me, a Miss America contestant had a platform of gay and lesbian rights. So I thought, after her being, bowed down to all year, well, I'm also speaking about equality, just in a different sense, but, we're not going to go into that whole discussion now. But I remember sitting in my bed the night before the March for Life, and I just turned 21, but I was praying like a 12-year-old. At the time, I decided to have a talk with God, and it wasn't like the let's, kneel by my bed and pray about it. It was, we need to have a talk. And I remember praying to him and asking for a sign. You guys ever done that, especially when you were younger? I said, I need a sign of whether or not I'm supposed to be going to the March for Life as Miss Delaware. I know I can't ask my board because they're going to say no, so I'm going to have to do it without asking anyone. And me being 21, when someone tells me not to do something, I just have to do it. So I really wanted to go and defend the life with the title that God had blessed me with, and he had given me an amazing voice. And I think that me being here 3 years later, speaking in front of all of you, is the sign that I think I hopefully made the right decision and used the title of Miss Delaware to God's glory, at least. And, it's cool being here today. And I think Rick Santorum is speaking. And I called my mom. I'm like, well, I'm going to be speaking in front of Rick Santorum. This is like the worst thing ever. So God has a funny sense of humor when you just trust him and just really do his will. It's interesting when it comes to the online age because right now I can do this. Someone just tweeted me. That's really nice. I can take a picture of all of you right now, and I can post this picture, which I'm going to do, and it can be shared, it can be liked, it can be commented on, and it's no longer by people that are just my age. I just turned 24, so it's no longer by people that are in their late teens, which I think was Facebook developed for people over 18, I think. My grandmother's on Facebook. She's probably going to like it. We have 10-year-olds on Facebook that can do the same thing, so there's so many different ages that are in the online space and on the online space and very, very active. A recent study that I was reading about proved very interesting to me. It was done by a group at GW, which is fitting since we're in New York. And it said that between 2013, they had done studies throughout the years. But the difference in teen internet users from 2013 to 2014 was incredible. It went from 23% in 2013, which actually seems kind of low, to 93% the following year. That's in 1 year alone of people that are active on it almost every single day. And it really is mind-blowing to an extent. And we can, think of what we want about those kids that are, well, I say kids, but it's really everyone. We can say whatever we want to about them, about what they're doing, about the terrible things that they're doing or saying. But I think it all comes down to the same thing, which is people want to be heard. They want to have a voice. They want to have an opinion on something. And I think that's ultimately what's so great about social media. There's a lot of negatives, obviously, about social media and its misuse, but I think it all comes down to people really, really want to be heard. If we take Facebook alone, for example, I have a Facebook, I have a lot of friends, and so I get to see their statuses. Man, Twitter is blowing up a storm right now. When it comes to Facebook alone, we'll just put it this way. Facebook alone was created for statuses, it was created for pictures, created for updates. If you take a look at Facebook now versus a year ago, no longer do you just see statuses and pictures, you see articles being posted, especially opinion articles. I have Cosmo garbage filling up my timeline all the time. It's unbelievable that the shift in just what I'm eating for dinner has turned into social issues, and that's something that I've really, really seen. And something that's almost scary about that is we live in an age where relativism reigns supreme. Basically, that there is no truth, you make your own truth, which in reality is the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard. It's your truth that there is no truth. I mean, relativism in general just makes no sense to me, but maybe that's just me. And when you see these articles being shared and posted online, it's basically a relativistic way of looking at it where, these opinion columns and articles might make your mother blush if she saw that you posted them, but, to each their own. You can post what you want. You can say what you want, really with no consequence. So that's kind of the negative, but if we look at the beauty of that in general, the truth that is in our pro-life presence and my pro-life presence, especially being a young person, people listen, I have the ability to share in my position, or in all of our positions for that matter, the inherent dignity of the human being. These people that are posting, maybe not so great articles, we're all in the search for truth. Not regular truth, but truth with a capital T. And we're all searching for that in our lives. And I think our ability as pro-life bloggers, those that are active in social media, we have an amazing power in that we are able to share that truth. A good friend of mine, Stanek, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's another Catholic speaker. He said a line that I think is so beautiful and poignant. He said, "If there is no truth to guide our love, that's abandonment. If there is no love to guide our truth, that's cruelty." Let me say that again because I think I might have said that wrong. If there is no truth to guide our love, that's abandonment. If there is no love to guide our truth, that's cruelty. People want to be heard in their opinions, but I think the hardest thing that I've had to deal with and looking about that is how do I reach out to those people, maybe the people that don't believe the same thing I do, that did not grow up in a great family like I did. I was extremely blessed in my upbringing. It's important for me and for all of us to realize that people communicate differently. And it's not always going to take one post on social media to change people's lives, but sometimes it involves branching off of social media, having the same presence in line as in person, online versus in person. We know, all of us in this room, the inherent dignity of the unborn, defenseless child. We're here in defense of them. That's no question. But do we also think about the inherent dignity of those that don't believe the same thing we do? We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. Even our atheist brothers and sisters, our agnostic brothers and sisters, as crazy as that sounds, are our brothers and sisters in Christ. Those women who have had abortions themselves, we're all in this together. And to know their dignity and the way to reach out to them. I only have a minute left. I encourage all of us going forward in whatever sphere that we communicate to those around us. We have to humble ourselves in the way that we talk to people. All of us, I do a lot of pro-life talks over the country, and those people, those kids are hungry for it. They're hungry for that truth that I'm talking to them about the pro-life movement. Not everyone is like that. We have to communicate differently, and sometimes it takes patience. I'm not the best at patience, and I don't understand when people don't, understand that that's a human child. You don't have 4 arms and 4 legs, so for me it makes no sense, but it's sometimes taking that patience and working with that person, whether you communicate with them online and bringing it offline. We have to live as Jesus lived, online and offline. I'm going to end with this quote by Pope Benedict, who is like the biggest bro ever, in my opinion. He says, I'm 24, I use the word bro, I can't help it. He said this, and it's just absolutely beautiful. The world offers you comfort, but you are not made for comfort, you are made for greatness. Oh, can I just say that again? The world offers you comfort, but you are not made for comfort, you are made for greatness. As Christ suffered for us, we have to be willing to suffer for him. It's not comfortable to be uncomfortable, but in our jobs and in our positions, I obviously had the position of Miss Delaware, but we all have different roles and responsibilities in different groups that we're going to meet. We can't use aggression and harsh judgment. We have to meet people where they're at without compromising our views on abortion and the beauty that is human life. Again, the world offers you comfort, but you are not made for comfort. You are made for greatness. Thank you very much.
Now, isn't she a beautiful witness? This is what we need to be, all of us, and going into our own spheres, into our own communities, and reaching out to people. Our next guest is Kristen Hawkins. Kristen Hawkins is the president of Students for Life of America. Since launching Students for Life, she has more than tripled the number of campus pro-life groups in the U.S., from 181 to over 800 in 49 states. She speaks to youth and adult pro-life organizations across the country to train pro-life activists on how to end abortion in America. She is also the author of Courageous: Students Abolishing Abortion in This Lifetime. Please help me welcome Kristen Hawkins.
It was the spring in 1963 when Martin Luther King Jr. Finally took some advice from his friends to head down to Birmingham, Alabama to see what's happening there. While other pastors started preparing for their Easter sermons and families were looking forward to their Easter celebration with their families, Martin Luther King and some of his allies decided that they were going to march on Good Friday. The police told them if they marched, they would be arrested, but yet they gathered. And they got several people to join with them in Birmingham. They started to march. They were arrested within minutes of just setting out. Martin Luther King was actually separated at that time from the rest of the protesters and placed in solitary confinement. Wasn't able to make a phone call to his wife. No one knew where he was. It was in the midst of that dark jail cell in solitary confinement where he found and illuminated the light and the hope of our nation. And he wrote one of our nation's most iconic pieces of activism literature, as I call it. It's a letter from Birmingham jail. In the darkness, he illuminated the light and the hope for our nation. 8 days after he was released from Birmingham jail, they decided that they were going again to start training people. But this time they started to go to the youth. They actually went into the local high schools to find young people, to train and mobilize them to join them in the civil rights movement. On May 2nd, Martin Luther King and 1,000 young people marched in Birmingham. They were arrested. On May 3rd, they did it again. Another 1,000 people. They were arrested. Well, then the jails were full. They didn't know what to do in Birmingham. And so on the third day of the protests, the police unleashed the water hoses and the attack dogs on the protesters. Those iconic images that we saw that day literally changed the future of the civil rights movement. The White House was said that was a turning point for them when they realized they had to stop focusing on Cuba and all that was going on and pay attention to what was happening in the American South. Today, 500,000 people are going to be here in Washington, D.C. They're going to be here. And my call to them is going to be simple. Illuminate the truth and the hope. Illuminate that light that we have. To be that light. Jesus called us to be the light. He didn't ask us to be the light. He said you are the light. And we have that. And we know we have truth on our side. But it's not always what we all just have to do, right? We have truth, we have hope, and we have love. And my call today is simple. Illuminate the truth. Illuminate the truth. ProLifeCon is one of my favorite events every year because we get to talk about how can we make an impact? How can we in our homes and our communities, how can we impact what happens here in Washington, D.C.? And we can do that with social media. Today, we will show this nation that this is a pro-life generation, that we believe abolishing abortion is possible. Right now, we've got people tweeting pictures and putting up Instagram tags. They're putting up their Facebook posts. They're telling their friends and family, I'm in Washington, D.C. because I believe that a preborn child is a human being. I'm here standing for human rights. And that's what we can do, all of us, each and every one of us today, no matter who we are. No matter who we are, no matter what our age, we can get on social media and we can illuminate the truth. We can tell everyone we know what happens in abortion. Today we'll be showing members of our own Congress the truth, that this is in fact a pro-life generation. Last night we had some disappointing news when the House GOP decided they weren't going to vote on the fetal pain bill today. They weren't going to do it because they had some dissenting members. And some of those members actually said the reason why we shouldn't vote on the bill right now was because millennials and young women aren't pro-life. That's categorically false. There is no poll that proves that. And actually a poll that was released yesterday showed that 80% of Americans think that there's too many abortions. 59% of millennials believe that abortion is morally wrong. And 52% of millennials only think abortion should be legal in the 3 hard cases. We are winning this generation. So I make an ask to you all today. When you're on Facebook, when you're on Twitter, when you're getting the word out, you're illuminating the truth. Illuminate the truth to our elected officials who told us they were going to come here to Washington, D.C., and they were going to stand for the preborn, and they were going to be courageous. Because last night, they were not courageous. Last night, they did the opposite of what we elected them to do. And when we talk about winning the young people always come to me in election years, and they want to get Students for Life groups out to their campaigns. And they want to get Students for Life groups out to their political rallies. Well, we know millennials are disinterested in politics. They're cynical of what happens in Washington, D.C. But we tell young people, be faithful, vote pro-life, always vote pro-life. Yesterday, the GOP is now hurt itself even further with the millennials. They have set themselves back for decades to come because they could have stood and they failed to do it. So illuminate the truth. Illuminate the truth. Illuminate the hope today. Something that I often find when I talk to audiences, especially adult audiences, that a lot of people are pro-life, but they actually don't think abolishing abortion is possible. They don't believe in their heart of hearts that we can actually end legal abortion in this country. It can happen. We overturned slavery in this country. We ended the civil rights abuses in the American South. We can restore a culture of life and protect the preborn and their moms. We can do it. But the question is, do you believe it? Because so often we're like that football coach who tells his team moments before they run into the field, good luck, you did a great job in practice, but you're going to get your butts kicked. Do you think the team will win if the coach has that mentality? Absolutely not. Because they can't envision the win any longer. The one person who's supposed to believe in them told them that it was impossible, that wasn't going to happen. So illuminate the hope today. Talk about how we will abolish abortion this lifetime. Believe in your heart of hearts. And challenge yourselves. And I know this is hard, but I believe in a great and awesome God, the maker of the heavens and the earth. I believe through him we can do all things. I believe through him we can abolish abortion. Now, do you believe that? Do you believe that? So today, illuminate hope. Illuminate truth. And stand with this pro-life generation who will abolish abortion. Thank you.
Isn't Kristen Hawkins amazing? She can get a room fired up in a moment. We are going to next have Dan Haley and Jenna Gasu. I will tell you a little bit about them. Dan Haley and Jenna Gassou are both lifetime residents of Delaware County, Pennsylvania. They both graduated from Monsignor Bonner and Archbishop Pendergrass High School, following their college careers at Villanova University and Rosemont College. On April 10, 2014, they learned that their son had a terminal neural tube defect, anencephaly. Throughout their journey, they decided to celebrate Shane's life in the womb together as a family with a bucket list. How many of you saw this? See, it works. Shane's story caught headlines as their page, Prayers for Shane, documented their adventures. Let's welcome Dan and Jenna.
Good morning. Jenna and I are honored to be here today on the this 10th annual Pro-Life Conference and the 42nd anniversary of Roe v. Wade. We'd like to thank those of you here who followed our journey with Shane and offer prayers on behalf of our family. It is both refreshing and empowering to be in the presence of so many amazing people who define what it means to be pro-life and fight every day to protect the most innocent among us. Our area of concern this morning is in regards to a birth defect called anencephaly. Anencephaly is a terminal neural tube birth defect in which a baby is born without parts of the brain or skull. This usually occurs in the first few days of conception before most women even know they are pregnant. Many people haven't heard of anencephaly, but it is the most common neural tube birth defect along with spina bifida. Life expectancy for a baby born with anencephaly ranges from a few hours to a few days at most.
Our son Shane was diagnosed with anencephaly on April 10, 2014, at 13 weeks gestation. That day, all I could remember was getting out a set of onesies that we had decorated because we were going to announce later on that we were expecting. But then I was sitting in the doctor's office with my mom when the doctor came in after an ultrasound and told us that we had a problem with the baby. Our doctor brought us back in the office and wrote down one word, anencephaly. One word that changed our life forever. We didn't know what it was, but our doctor began to explain that it was a neural tube birth defect with no survival rate. She then continued to say that most people choose to terminate after receiving that diagnosis. My mom quickly interjected and said that we were pro-life and we were going to choose to carry to term. We were upset that that wasn't even an option, to terminate. We had just seen our baby on the ultrasound, moving and kicking. How could someone just say that you could just get rid of it like that? Like we could just dispose of his life, like he wasn't our son and like he didn't matter. I had to call Dan to let him know that we had a problem. When I went and I saw him, I hugged him and I showed him a picture of our baby. I said, he has anencephaly. We're going to carry him, but he's not going to make it. We took a couple days to digest the news that we just received, and we learned on the internet of a little bit more of anencephaly. Some of the terms that came up we saw, frog baby, monster. They dehumanized these babies with such cool names. I was mad and angry at the fact that even in some textbooks written back then, these babies were treated like they were worthless, and I knew my son's life wasn't worthless. Shortly after, we found anencephaly.info. We saw real families, read real stories of real babies that were born, and they were beautiful. This gave us hope, strength, and courage to brace this hard journey ahead. We later decided to create a bucket list. We were going to take our son to as many places as we could as a family. Because we knew most of our time with our son was going to be within the womb, Dan felt like he needed to connect with our son more. He created a Facebook page. He named it Prayers for Shane after we found out that we were expecting a little boy. Our first trip for our adventure was to the Cape May Zoo, that first weekend that we found out that we were diagnosed with anencephaly. We then went to places like New York City, Lancaster, Flyers games, Phillies games, Ocean City, Maryland, Linvilla Orchards, and Gino's Cheesesteaks. We traveled to all kinds of places together as a family. Looking back, these are my favorite memories, the three of us. One of our friends, Chelsea, called from a local news station and said she had seen the page and she wanted to share her story. Soon enough, our story went viral. Hundreds of thousands of people were taking control and praying for our son. They were following our journey, and they were connecting to us through the internet. Tons of prayers and support poured in. We received so many messages and comments, and ultimately, this led to friendships with other parents from our support groups, and they were from all over the country. Because it is so rare for someone to carry a baby with anencephaly to term, there wasn't many options for us to find local people to connect with, and that's why we were happy for the internet. These parents were what we needed. We were all in a group where we didn't wish we belonged, but we needed each other. A lot of people started commenting and saying that, how could they do this? I don't think I could be as strong as them. The fact was that we knew we were parents at the moment of conception. Shane was our firstborn. His life mattered. He was our little boy, and we were going to protect him while he was in the womb. The journey was faced with many tears after doctor's appointments, planning a funeral, which no parent should have to do. But more so, it was spent with family, celebrating each milestone, from revealing to our friends and family that we were expecting a boy, to Shane even having hiccups. It was a harsh reality. They were going to lose Shane, but we were determined to make sure our son knew that he was loved no matter what, and we were proud to hold the title of his parents. The moment Shane was born was truly a miracle. We had the best staff with us. The nurses treated Shane as if he was their own. At 2:25 a.m. on October 9th, Shane arrived safe and sound. That is the moment that I held the whole entire world in my hands, all 6 pounds and 9 ounces. We looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a while, we had cried tears of joy. He was perfect. People all around the world awaited his arrival, and his family was there to welcome him and see him baptized into the Catholic faith.
I think we should just relax for a little bit. We'll
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Let's relax for a little bit.
All right.
That video was the only time that Shane cried, but that's our favorite video. I can honestly say one of the hardest moments was when we had to give Shane to the funeral director. It's a parent's worst nightmare, and that moment haunts me. But I look back at the night I delivered Shane. For all the months I carried him in my womb, and those 4 precious hours, I can say it was worth it, and that they were the happiest hours of our lives. Shane was born into a loving family. He had a strong heart, 10 fingers, 10 toes, lips and nose like his father's, lots of hair like me, his mom. We saw him for what he had, not for what others said he didn't. He cried only once, but he opened his eyes to meet his whole entire family. We could never imagine if we never had the opportunity to hold and meet our son.
A very unfortunate statistic from LifeSiteNews.com shows that in countries where abortion is legal, 95% of babies diagnosed with anencephaly are terminated. And we believe that one of the main things that pro-life online activists can do to help reduce these numbers is to reach out to parents who have chosen life for babies with such a grim diagnosis and share the stories with the world, whether it's on blogs, Facebook, Twitter, etc. It's amazing when people start sharing it what can happen, as we've seen with our story. This will help raise awareness for anencephaly while simultaneously creating an environment of support for parents whose babies have recently been diagnosed with this neural tube birth defect. One of the first things these parents do after receiving this terrible news is go online and look to others for guidance, because many doctors and medical professionals advise them to terminate the pregnancy. By highlighting stories where parents choose life, you will help other parents see that their babies are precious human beings and deserve to be treated with the utmost respect and dignity. Through sharing the stories of so many amazing parents that have given their children life, pro-life online activists will be doing their part to help reverse this trend that has seen 9 out of 10 parents abort their children after this diagnosis. It is God that entrusts us with the care of these beautiful children, and it is He alone that determines when to call them home. One of our favorite quotes is, "There is no foot too small that it cannot leave an imprint on this world." From the time spent growing in his mother's womb and the 4 hours with us after his birth, Shane left an imprint on this world that will last generations. Shane is a son, a grandson, a nephew, and a cousin. His life, along with the lives of other babies with anencephaly, holds infinite value, and is deserving of the utmost respect and love. We'd like to thank all of you at Family Research Council that have given us the opportunity to speak here today, and thank all of you for your time and continued efforts in the pro-life community. God bless.
Jenna and Dan, that was very, very powerful. And your son, Shane, has done more in his 4 hours of life than most of us will do in our lifetimes. So we have you to thank for the beautiful testimony that the two of you are and your son, because you took over the internet and you really stood up for life, and we appreciate it. Let's give him another hand. Our next guest is Senator Rick Santorum. Former United States Senator Rick Santorum is co-founder of Patriot Voices, a grassroots and online community of Americans from across the country committed to restoring the American dream for hardworking families. As a United States Senator, Senator Santorum wrote and championed legislation that outlawed the heinous procedure known as partial birth abortion, as well as writing the Born Alive Infants Protection Act, the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, and the Combating Autism Act, because he believes each and every individual has value and the most vulnerable in our society need to be protected. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Senator Rick Santorum.
Excuse my casual attire, but I'm marching today, so I want to make sure that I'm nice and warm. After last year, this is going to be, I feel like I'm going to be in Orlando today. Thank you all. First off, thank you FRC for putting this gathering together. It shows their continual wonderful support for the pro-life movement. So I want to thank Tony and everybody here for the opportunity to come by, and I want to thank all the previous speakers for their courage, for their vision of providing a real positive vision for our country to be accepting and welcoming of all human life. I mean, that's really what this issue is about. I mean, it comes down fundamentally as who is part of our family here in America. Who do we accept? Who are we willing to love? And we can have as we have in America today, we can have a limited view of that. We can have a view that, well, we only accept and love people that are perfect and that we're willing to accept, not children with anencephaly because they can't do much. We have a little girl, many of you know, named Bella. We're very, very excited that next month Karen and I have been working on a project now for a few years. Some of these projects work. It takes a while to percolate up. Karen and I and our daughter Elizabeth are very, very excited about a book that's coming out on February 10th called Bella's Gift, about our daughter Bella. And to the world, and unfortunately, as we found out to many in the medical profession, children with trisomy 18, children who, at least according to the medical definition, are, quote, incompatible with life, are not deserving of care, not deserving of real treatment that, other than palliative treatment. They're not deserving of life-saving treatment or treatment that can help continue and improve the quality of their life. And that's all part of the culture of death. It's all part of the idea that we aren't going to welcome certain people here and treat them equally. Imagine that. Many of those who cry for equality, and yet when it comes to those who don't have utility, equality goes by the wayside. It's a rather casually disregarded. So I'm really excited to be putting forth this book to deliver the message that every life matters, and that we as a society should be welcoming to all, because the incredible gifts that God has planned for each and every one of us, we have no idea. I had no idea the little girl with trisomy 18 could have such a huge impact on so many people. A little girl who can't talk, can't walk, only communicates through her eyes and through that wonderful sense you give just by being in the room with her. Those are gifts. And if you look at the millions of abortions that we've had since Roe versus Wade, it just boggles the minds of the gifts that we have foregone in America. So much potential, so much goodness that could come from being open and affirming as a society to all human life. And so that's what we commemorate today, this sad day, this tragic day, when 9 people decided to take out of the hands of the American public what they have an absolute right to do, which is to determine the moral compass and pathway for our society. And I know there are other decisions that the court's going to be considering where they may end up doing the same thing. Hopefully they've learned a lesson that when you decide to put yourself in front of the American public and decide what is moral and just for them on issues of this magnitude, that the truth will never, ever be held silent. The truth will always fight. The truth will always have its voice heard. It may not win, at least initially, but truth will always, always be sounded out. Maybe from voices who have their neck with the boot of the government on it, which is how many pro-lifers feel today, where they have no rights, but it will be heard, and it will continue. And that's why I march. That's why we march, because we have an obligation to make sure that our country, even as little coverage that the mainstream media will give this march, we have an obligation to go out and deliver the truth. I'm happy to take a question or two if they ask me to leave some time for questions, and I just got the sign to. Yes.
Thank you for coming, Senator. Could you speak a little bit about some of the details about the book and how it came about? I mean, like not how it came about, but just some of the stories that you've heard speaking with constituents from all across the nation.
Well, the book is about our daughter, Bella, and Karen and I. It's really been a project Karen's wanted to do, and we decided to work on it collaboratively. Truth be told, we were going to write it. We're going to write the book together with our daughter Elizabeth, who's going to sort of help shepherd the process. And after a day, we decided that, my voice, what I was going through was something very different than what Karen was going through, and trying to write it as one voice was really a disservice to the reader, because one of the things we found that because I was going through something and Karen and I were going through something different, both emotionally, spiritually, that it would be helpful to parents and the public to see. I mean, many people look at, Karen, Rick, Santorum, and they have 7 kids, and we have little Bella, and it's just the perfect family and everything's great. That's just not the way it works. It's a struggle. I think the number is 85% of marriages that have a child with a severe disability end up in divorce. It's stressful. It's a strain. It's tough. It's a joy. It's a blessing. It's awesome. But it's both those things. And we decided that it was best not to sugarcoat that. And so it was a difficult process for us to. So it ended up. Karen wrote part of the book. I wrote part of the book. It was an even balance. Karen has 11 chapters. I have 7. Her chapters are generally twice as long as mine, but that's the way it should be. She carried the laboring oar most decidedly on raising and caring for Bella. So hopefully people will learn from our experience. In many respects, it is a book on all life matters. It's also a book on marriage. It's also a book on faith. All of those things, very, very important parts of the soup that made Bella the happy, healthy girl she is today. Anybody else? Yes.
What do you make of the House Representatives? Sorry. What do you make of the House Representatives yesterday canceling the pain-capable abortion bill? Something that has polled very well, something that had a little bit of opposition that surprised people at the last minute. What do you make of the House deciding not to vote on that?
Well, all I can say is that I'm sure the leadership is looking at the situation, and the most important thing you want to do is you want to have a bill that can pass. You don't want to bring up a bill that's not going to pass. If the reason the leadership decided to pull it was they were concerned that they didn't have the votes to pass it, that's a legitimate reason to pull a bill, to begin, to make sure that you work so it's successful. So I don't know the details as to what the leadership's thinking was. We're disappointed that it sounds like several members were concerned about this bill, and this is an issue that, as you mentioned, is overwhelmingly supported by the American public. I mean, you have these children. I know a little bit about this because the partial birth abortion bill was very much this group of babies who are 20 weeks plus gestational age, which is what partial birth was used on, and so we saw the bipartisan support that came from eliminating this procedure, and now with all the advances of medical science, it's fairly clear. That's why younger people are more and more pro-life, because they see the truth. You can't argue the fact that when you look at this baby in the womb that it's a baby. I mean, you can say it's a blob of tissue, you can call it whatever you want, but it's a baby. Obviously it's a baby from the beginning, but it looks like a baby at 20 weeks. And in a visual world where emotions are important, the reality sets in. And so I don't understand why anyone, for any reason, would oppose a bill that says we can't kill these little children. And so it's disappointing in that regard, but I hope the leadership is doing their job responsibly to make sure that we don't have a bad situation where we bring a bill up and we lose it. That would be the worst thing to have happen. So we'll wait and see. Thank you all very much. God bless.
On our 10th annual, we also have a very special treat. We are doing this for the first time. We're going to actually go to the National Mall and have Josh Duggar, the Family Research Council's Action Executive Director, who will be doing some interviews there. So hang on. And it's live.
Well, thanks so much, Arena. We are here at the National Mall. You can see the stage is set up behind me. It's a little bit muddy out here today, but I'll tell you, I got my coffee. I'm ready for the day. I got my boots on, and I'll tell you, it's a little warmer than it has been the last few years. For those of you who have joined the March for Life in the past, you know how the conditions normally are. I'm just thankful to see the sun shining out here today. There's lots of people coming out, and I'm joined by some of my family. Here. And Lawson, I was just thinking about all the great times. You've been to the March for Life. What do you think about the atmosphere out here today?
I think it's great. This is going to be the best one in a while just because the weather. I think it's going to be...
Well, I'm at Josh Duggar on Twitter and Instagram. You know, people getting the word out, it's not just about being here at the March, although you got to make it out to the March, but it's also about speaking out, and that's what we're seeing as we encourage people around here as well. Josie, what do you think about the weather? I know it's a little muddy out here as well.
It feels much better than last year.
You can definitely say that. And Ginger Duggar, Ginger, you have made the trek all the way. Stand up.
I think it's really neat to see just everyone coming out and that voice that's there standing up and speaking for those who can't speak for themselves. And so we're just encouraged this year to continue that.
Well, and is the weather is not the primary thing, but I have to say this is important, and the fact that the weather is, God has definitely given us some gracious weather here today. So Jana's over here, and Jana, what do you think about the people that are speaking out online and the fact that it's not just about being here and standing, but even going out there and writing things and posting? What would you say are the most important things people can be telling their friends?
I think to get out and to stand up for what's right, even though others around you may not be doing that, just stand firm in what you believe.
Well, it's encouraging because you think of all the people who are out there who are taking a stand, and the fact is sometimes we get people that are going to give us a hard time. They're going to try to say, hey, you can't vote. Be bold and be courageous and voice your...
So it is the first year that we're doing that, so we're still working out the glitches. There's a first time for everything. Our next guest is Senator Lindsey Graham. He has compiled a long track record of achievement. The president of South Carolina Citizens for Life calls him a stalwart, go-to lawmaker on right-to-life issues, while National Right to Life says that he has been a pro-life champion throughout his years of congressional service and is the architect of one of the most important pro-life laws ever enacted by Congress, the Unborn Victims of Violence Act. And Susan B. Anthony List said he is an example of leadership in the pro-life movement we should follow. Today, he serves as the lead sponsor in the United States Senate of the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, and unfortunately that has been tabled for the time being, where he continues to push for a vote on this important legislation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the senior senator from the great state of South Carolina, Lindsey Graham.
I'm going to hire you. That was very good. Thanks a bunch. Happy New Year. Let it be said that 2015 is going to be a year of progress and debate about America. That Harry Reid, we wish Harry well. We hope he comes back to the Senate. We're glad he's not the majority leader. So what's one of the big benefits of a Republican-controlled Senate? You'll actually get to vote. And you'll actually have a chance to test your beliefs against that of your colleagues and have debates about things that matter. So if I had to rank things that matter, national security matters, right? A lot of things matter. But when you become a person and when the law should be there for you, I think is a worthy debate of a great democratic society. To those who believe that debating abortion, talking about when the law should be there for the unborn and when it should not, to me that is absolutely the heart and soul of democracy. And when people tell me, well, abortion shouldn't be part of politics, who says? If you can't talk about life, when it begins and how it should be dealt with and how it ends, isn't that the foundation of society? So I welcome the opportunity to have a debate with my colleagues on the other side about America in 2015. And here's the concept that we're pushing. At 20 weeks in the birthing process, 5 months into becoming you, this is the one thing that I have in common with President Obama. We were all 5-month-old babies at one time. After that, we took a different path, I think. But all of us as human beings have the same experience to get here, basically. There's one way to come into this earth so far, and I think it was very important for society to talk about that process. So at 20 weeks in the birthing process, there are 6 countries in the world that allow abortion on demand. 6. The question for America, do we want to be in that club? Does allowing wholesale abortion on demand at 5 months into pregnancy, does that make us a better nation? What good comes from this? or does it make us a weaker nation? My belief is that most Americans will say, when they understand this issue, nothing really good comes from aborting a baby at 5 months. And the theory of this bill is different in this regard. Under Roe v. Wade, remember that case? It says the state has a compelling interest to protect the child at medical viability. That's always been a part of the Roe decision, recognizing that the government, the state, has a compelling interest to protect the child at medical viability. Would you agree with me that a lot's changed since 1973 in the medical world? So we're having debates now in 2015 about a 1973 decision on the medical side. But what I'm offering is a new legal theory for elected officials to have a say. And the real contest here is who should be deciding issues such as when to allow abortion and when to exclude it. When do you become a person worthy of protection under the law? 5 unelected judges? 8 or 9 unelected judges? Or all of us through the democratic process? So what we're trying to do with this bill is focus on the fact that at 20 weeks in the birthing process, the medical community is required to administer anesthesia to the child when there's an operation. And routinely, babies are operated on for problems, abnormalities at 20 weeks. If a doctor is required to administer anesthesia because the baby can feel pain, should we all sit silently and allow abortion on demand? If the medical community is protecting the baby from pain, should not we speak up and protect the baby from death? I think so. A new, compelling reason for the state, the government, to weigh in on behalf of the child. When you look at medical encyclopedias, young parents are very excited about the child. They're studying hard as to what to drink and what to eat and how to behave to give that baby the best chance to come into the world safe and sound. At that stage in the pregnancy, it is routinely suggested to the parents that you sing to the child, because by now they can associate your voice. I find it odd that the medical community suggests that parents interact with the child because they knew who you are, and our law allows the baby to be killed on demand through abortion. I welcome this debate. I look forward to this debate. And I would say this: if the word extreme is going to be used, and it will, the people who want wholesale abortion on demand at 20 weeks are extreme. You need to do some soul searching. America needs to do some soul searching. Who do we want to be as a people? What do we stand for? And are we a better nation for being in a club of 6 that allows abortion on demand at 20 weeks? I would suggest over time, with your help, logical arguments being made, we will win this fight. This is the next great cause in the pro-life movement. As we were able to convince 70% of the American people that partial birth abortion was a heinous procedure and it should be banned, including people who say they're pro-choice, we shall succeed here. Over time, the weight of our argument, intellectually, scientifically, and morally, will win the day. It is a great cause. It is worth fighting for. It should be part of the 2016 discussion on both sides of the aisle. And you're on the right side of history. you're on the right side of science, and you're on the right side of making America a better place. As to the rape exception, we have to find a way to deal with this problem. My goal is to focus on the child. I've always had exceptions for the life of the mother, rape, and incest. Some disagree, including the Pope. I respect those who are intellectually consistent and honest about the baby is the baby. Some of us who have these exceptions do so in a democratic society believing that there are some places we will not go. Don't let that become the issue. That is a disagreement that overshadows at times the commonality. I hope and pray that we can find a way to deal with the current conflict about definitions. And if we do not, shame on us all, because this is a debate worth having. We will win if we can focus on the baby at 20 weeks. And is America in the right spot on this issue? I'm going to do more than bring my bill up. I'm going to need your help to find a way out of this definitional problem with rape. I'm going to call up the Women's Health Protection Act, the centerpiece of the pro-choice movement. Are you familiar with this legislation? Okay. Well, I'm going to make you familiar with it. Senator Blumenthal is a friend. He's pro-choice. This bill is NARAL and other pro-abortion groups' centerpiece of their legislative agenda. It basically rolls back all state protection for the unborn. I think very draconian. I want to debate his bill and vote on his bill as we debate and vote on my bill. I offered this debate last year and they said no. I find it odd that the centerpiece of the pro-life movement, they objected to the debate. We're going to have this debate, and we're going to get more votes for our bill than they do for theirs. So to those of you who are worried about this debate, I think you're missing a great opportunity to make America a better place. So to our pro-choice friends, we're going to test the power of your ideas against the power of our ideas, and we're going to vote. Welcome to democracy. Thank you very much. Questions? A partial standing ovation. That was good. Any questions? Sir.
Specifically when it comes to the House bill last night, the arguments that brought that down seem to be what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything else? What should the House be doing? Are you just going to focus?
Well, we just need to find a consensus position on the rape exception. The rape exception will be part of the bill. That's the Hyde position. Will be part of the bill. We just need to find a way definitionally to not get us in a spot of where we're debating about what a legitimate rape is. That's not the cause that we're in. We're not here debating legitimate rapes. We're here talking about saving babies at 20 weeks and whether or not we should be in a club of 6. We'll get there. I don't know yet how we'll get there, but the cause is too great to fail. Do you agree with that? Yeah, it's too great to fail. So we'll get there. Yeah, this is a democracy. The one thing I like about Republicans, we can actually disagree among ourselves. It seems to be Democrats have a hard time tolerating that. If you're a pro-choice Republican, you're welcome. We'll talk about some other things. Pro-life Democrats get the heck beat out of them. You know, that's what the caricature of the Republican Party on this issue is so out of sync with reality. The really unreported story is how hostile the Democratic Party is to the pro-life position. That is the most unreported story in America. And if we have a debate about 2016, who should be president, we'll have a debate about that. So anyway, we're going to find a solution to this problem. We're going to bring it up to the House. We're going to vote. We're going to bring it to the Senate. It's going to go through the Judiciary Committee. It's going to come out of committee. It's going to go to the floor, and we're going to open the bill up for amendment. We're not going to run away from our beliefs. We're going to embrace them. We're going to allow them to be tested and attacked, and we're going to ask the other side to put your bill on the floor too. And if they don't want to put their bill on the floor, I'm going to do it myself. I will take their bill and make it my amendment and vote against it, but we will have a debate. Thank you all very much.
To that end, I did the fetal pain paper, which just was published this week, and in it you will find resources from 25 scientific studies that show that babies by 20 weeks post-fertilization can feel and do feel pain. And so I'd encourage you to go on our website and download it, send it around, because people want to see the science. Here's the science. You want to see the science behind fetal pain? Here it is. And I would like to tell you that babies by 20 weeks post-fertilization have more receptors at the top of their skin, right at the first layer. And so they can feel pain even more than newborns and adults. And we need to tell people this. This is very painful. And as Senator Graham said before, if this is enough for the medical community to give anesthesia to babies by 20 weeks post-fertilization, then why would it make it right for us to kill them, and by a process of dismemberment, and by such a cruel way? And we have to protect these babies because by 20 weeks post-fertilization they can feel pain. So I encourage you to go to that resource and share it with your friends who say, well, you can't prove it. Here are the studies. So with that, I wanted to just let you know that we're going to take an intermission. We'll be back in 10 minutes, and we have a great lineup for the second half. So go ahead.
Number on your screen.
Let me know if you can see me. Can you see me? You can see me? Okay, yeah? Hello? Okay, all right, okay. So I won't be able to hear you, is that right? Through Skype, but I can hear you on the phone. So you're not speaking to me on Skype, you're going to speak to me on the phone.
Some new friends, ran into old friends. I wanted to introduce our next guest. Anne McElhinney is a journalist and film producer and director. She has also written for and is a regular contributor to a number of different international media organizations and a regular on a number of U.S. Talk radio shows. McElhinney has worked as a journalist and filmmaker in the U.S., Canada, Cambodia, Indonesia, China, Chile, and Uganda. Her most recent success is a massive crowdfunding campaign for a movie about Kermit Gosnell, who we know a lot about, the abortionist known for his horrific work in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So she used the internet to get the funds for this movie. Please welcome Anne McElhinney by way of Skype.
Hello, am I live? I can't hear anyone. Thank you. Oh, hang on. Hello, am I live? Okay, so I'm terribly sorry, everyone. Hello, a little bit of technical difficulties. Thank you very, very much for inviting me to be part of this amazing event today. I especially want to thank the FRC, who have been so supportive to us with the film. As many of you know, we had an incredibly successful crowdfunding campaign, amazing, miraculous, extraordinary, not without its hiccups, by the way, which I think is worth sort of telling you that story, because obviously you know what it's like to face opposition when you're trying to do your work. And as many of you know, we originally went to do the crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter, which is, the most established of all the crowdfunding sites. And, we had done a successful campaign on Kickstarter before for our previous film, Frack Nation. And we thought, there'll be no problem here. We submit, they don't curate their projects. So we submitted our project to Kickstarter, and what happened was very unusual. The Kickstarter wrote back and said we couldn't use the phrase murdered, stabbed, dead babies. We couldn't say thousands of babies murdered, which of course is what Gosnell did. So we were going to be forced to do a crowdfunding campaign about a film, but we couldn't say what the film was about, which gives you an idea of the kind of thing that people who say they're liberal, who say they want diversity, who say they want people to do creative projects, pay lip service often to those truths and actually don't do it in practice. What we did then was we left Kickstarter, we went to Indiegogo, and we started our campaign there. And as I said, the Family Research Council, among many others, were extremely helpful in making this film the reality that it's becoming right now. 26,000 people from all over the country and from all over the world sent in money. And actually, the campaign has reopened. So anyone out there who'd like to send $1, we'd be very grateful for it, because we'd like that number of 26,000 to be 100,000 people. And why is the story important? I think Gosnell is a story. There's so many things about it that are worthwhile, not least of which the fact that the mainstream media decided to completely ignore the story. I mean, if you ask people, lots of people around the United States, have they heard of this story? They've never heard of it. They've never heard of Gosnell. No one knows who his name is. And our ambition is to make Gosnell a household name in America, that everyone would know that he is the biggest serial killer in the country, the biggest serial killer in American history. And he deserves that title. He ran an abortion clinic, as many of you know, in Philadelphia. That abortion clinic was not inspected for over 17 years, mostly because of the actions of a Republican governor, Governor Ridge, who wanted to be popular, I suppose, and didn't want any opposition to abortion clinics. And so for 17 years, because of that, this man was allowed to butcher women and children without any opposition from the health services or from the government in Pennsylvania. It's just beyond belief. The health services were closing down nail salons while this man was operating. I want to tell two stories, and I want to tell them very quickly. I know I've got limited amount of time, but I want to tell two very quick stories that I think are very pertinent to this story and stories that will come out in the film. One is a very sad story, and one is a happy story. And the sad story is a story of a woman, and she gave testimony in court. I'm putting all of this on Facebook, by the way, so anyone who wants to know what's happening with Gosnell, with the Gosnell film, just go to the Gosnell Facebook page or go to gosnellmovie.com. And this woman testified on April the 10th, 2013. She was 15 when she had her abortion at Gosnell's clinic. And the prosecutor said to her, do you know how many sticks he put in you? No. Did you have any conversations with the doctor before he did the ultrasound or put the sticks into you? Yes, I asked him what the sex of my baby was. And he told me, if I'm good enough, I can know. But he never told me. Why did you want to know the sex? This is the prosecutor asking the question. And here's the answer. Because that could have made me think like, well, I don't know. I just wanted to know. Could have made you, and I would have talked it over with my mum because my mum asked me, are you comfortable? Are you sure? So, and the prosecutor says, were you comfortable? Are you sure about your decision? And she says, no. Did you ever find out the sex of your baby? And the answer is no. And that was the baby in question. That's the baby. Can everyone see that? That's the baby that was aborted. The procedure was a 3-day procedure, and on the first day he put the sticks in, and she went home and got into difficulty and had to go to the local hospital where that baby was delivered, stillborn. It's one of the babies that Gosnell was eventually convicted of murdering. The other story I want to tell, and I always tell, and it's interesting, it's one of the stories that I had, it made me cry when I read it from the grand jury report during the campaign. And it's the story of a girl, and she gave evidence during the grand jury. The grand jury for the Gosnell case sat for 2 years. And for those of you who know a lot about Gosnell, you can imagine what they heard and what they looked at and the evidence that they saw presented to them for 2 years. It was gruesome, and they were commended by everyone. Everyone said they did an amazing job, and they were powerful people. 50 people who did that for 2 years. But the amazing story was, so this girl goes in, and she was having an abortion at 29 weeks, and she was in there, and she was sort of in denial. It sounds to me like she was very much in denial about what was happening. And she's lying on the bed on the first day of one of these 3-day procedures, and Gosnell says to her, she says to Gosnell, what happens to the babies? What happens to the babies afterwards? And he says, oh, we burn them. And she went home that night. She was really disturbed. She spoke to her cousin and discussed the whole thing over and over with her cousin. And the cousin phoned Gosnell to see if they could reverse it. And he said, no, I don't do reversals. And by the way, you're not getting your money back. And, you know, she's there in the grand jury. She's telling this story. And the prosecutor says, oh, well, what happened then? And she looks at the prosecutor and she says, oh, my baby started kindergarten today. And for the first time in anyone's memory in the history of Pennsylvania, the grand jury stood up and applauded. So in Gosnell, there are some positive stories, and I wanted to share that one with you. And that story will certainly be in the film, Gosnell. Again, if anyone out there would like to give us $1 as a vote for this film and for this truth to be told, finally told, and for Gosnell to get his place in the annals of serial killers, please do that and do it today, gosnellmovie.com. And thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks to Anne for giving us information about the movie Gosnell, and to see how the power of media helped to fundraise. I think they fundraised at least $2 or so million for this movie, and people coming together saying, we want a story about this. We want the story to be told, because there was a media blackout when it was happening. And for us to get that story out there, and for the online community to come together and say, we're going to support this. So I really recommend that you do go on there and support their work. And we are going to change culture inside and out, not only by being present today and speaking to our family and friends, but also by supporting new media in the Hollywood, because this is changing culture from inside and out. If we put more pro-life films out there, we're going to change that culture itself through those means. I would like to introduce Susan Guchi. She is a licensed clinical social worker and programs and maternity home director of the Northwest Center, the largest pro-life service organization in our nation's capital, pregnant women. The maternity home builds upon the work of the Northwest Center Pregnancy Program in providing life-affirming options for women facing an unplanned pregnancy by providing a safe and stable living environment. Susan works individually with each woman to assist her in achieving her goals, including creating a strong, healthy family and a brighter future for herself and her baby. Let's welcome Susan Guchi to the stage.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to speak. I have two stories to share for those of you who don't know about maternity homes, or those who do, of two women I've been privileged to work with. The first one, I'll call her Monica. She called the maternity home one day, and she was pregnant and felt trapped. She was an only child and lived with her mom. She had a previous pregnancy a few months before, and her mother said that she had to get an abortion or she had to leave her home. She had an abortion and found herself pregnant a few months later. She refused to have an abortion again, and her mother insisted once again that she leave her home. She came to the maternity home and began the application process. She seemed very interested, and then I didn't hear anything for a few weeks. She gave me a call then, and I was surprised. I said, "What happened? I was expecting to hear back from you right away." She said, "I thought my mom changed her mind. I thought I could stay." But she was devastated because, again, her mother insisted she have the abortion. During the interview process, I learned a little bit more about her mother's own history. Her mother had had several abortions. In fact, she had even brought Monica as a young child to the abortion clinic with her. So a lot was going on, obviously, with her mom and not having healed from her own abortion trauma. Monica moved into the Northwest Center's maternity home a few weeks later. She did very well in the program. Her boyfriend was very involved, excited about the baby. Monica found a part-time job. She gave birth to a baby boy, Joshua. Her mother was present for the birth, and her mother was such a proud grandmother. Monica began online courses, continued to work, and eventually moved out of the home into her own apartment. The father remained involved. They worked really hard to co-parent together, and she and her mother started to heal their relationship. Almost all of the women we serve have been affected by some type of violence. Violence in the home, violence of abortion, violence from gangs, for immigrants, violence from war-torn countries. More than half of the women we serve in the pregnancy center and the maternity home have been affected by domestic violence. Ebony moved to Washington, D.C. a few years ago to enter college. She worked full-time and was in school full-time. She was very independent. She started dating a guy, and soon they moved in together, and then he became violent. She left, but she worked the overnight shift, and the domestic violence shelter would not allow her to continue her job. She was fiercely independent and knew that having a job and an income was a way to remain that way. So she returned to the abuser's home. He stalked her on campus. He stalked her at work, causing her to lose her job, until he became so violent that he almost killed her. And he beat her with an object in her abdomen, and she almost miscarried. He was arrested, and she was left with nowhere to stay. She was staying at a single women's shelter, but she couldn't stay any longer because she was pregnant. But she found the Northwest Center. The maternity home is a very small nonprofit, and we do not receive any government funding. The good thing about being small and working with limited resources is that we can tailor the program to the women's individual needs. She found another job working overnights. We were able to accommodate that and continued in school full-time while working full-time until her daughter was born, and then she went to school part-time, continued to work full-time. She gave birth to a delightful baby girl, Victoria, who never stopped smiling. While extremely independent, Ebony also thrived in a place where she was nurtured, supported, and encouraged. She moved into her own apartment, and will graduate from college later this year. She may have had nowhere else to go during her pregnancy. Thankfully, she found the Northwest Center, And I know that the staff, the volunteers, the other women of the home are grateful that she found us because she touched our lives with her strength and determination. To the pro-life bloggers, what I can say from my social work perspective is to share stories. Stories make us feel connected to the movement, connected to one another. It encourages us to share our own stories or to really listen. One of my main jobs, which I enjoy, is listening. And so often with technology and writing things down and sometimes just stopping, putting everything aside to really listen and hear what that true story is. The stories can help to dispel misconceptions. For example, what is a maternity home? What is a pregnancy center? So I would also encourage you to visit your local pregnancy centers and maternity homes and really understand what they do. What I have learned through this work is the importance of relationships. Even for the women who choose abortion, we treat them with love and respect and let them know that they do indeed have choices for life. Some will choose life and some will not, but they do know that they can talk to someone without judgment, without pressure, and start to heal. In this way, they can be either today or someday the best mothers they can be. They know they have hope, support, and unconditional love, and not just someone to offer diapers or housing, but also someone to share the joys and the stress of parenting, relationships, of life. So many of the families we serve come back years after their children have left infancy, either to donate clothing, to stop in and to show us how proud they are of their children, or to direct other women to us and to let us know they can choose life. So I would encourage all of you to remember the woman, remember the village it indeed takes to raise every child, and to treat everyone with that love, because you never know what she's been through. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for reminding us why we're here, both for the women and the children. And we are so grateful to the 2,000 plus pregnancy care centers that take care of women and their children and post-abortive women as well, because we are here for both of them. And we are here to help promote both of their lives. Our next guest is Chelsea Patterson, who is a graduate of Liberty University, where she served as senior class president, having the opportunities to speak to and activate the students on pro-life issues. She speaks and writes on topics close to her heart: sanctity of life, adoption, and her faith in Christ. You can find her writings at her column on Patheos, the Gospel Coalition, the Ethics and Religious Liberties Commission, and others. She lives and works in Washington, D.C., where she spends her time volunteering at the local pregnancy center and actively engaging in her church, Capitol Hill Baptist. Please help me welcome Chelsea Patterson.
Thank you so much to the Family Research Council for having me today. I'm very excited. So I want to start off with a question. Why are you pro-life? Might seem like a very silly question to ask at a pro-life conference, or it might seem like a very intelligent question to ask at a pro-life conference. So why are you pro-life? Wouldn't it be easier if you were not? Wouldn't it be easier if you didn't walk into your office and get ridiculed for wanting to save babies? Wouldn't it be easier if people didn't attack your beliefs that life begins at conception and that that life is a baby? Wouldn't it be easier? I want you to think about the reasons why you're pro-life, and I want to tell you a story. My story. My story begins across the ocean in Bucharest, Romania, post-communist 1991. Now, a little bit of background on Romania. Romania suffered under a terrible communist regime for many years, and the dictator during that time enforced laws. He was trying to grow his population in Romania, and he enforced laws that mandated family growth, reproduction. which is a good thing. Not government mandated, but family growth is a good thing. But he said if you did not have a child by a certain age, you would be brought in by the government for questioning. Then you'd be given some more time to go have a child. If at the end of that time you still didn't have a child, your family and yourself would be fined. Now, this was communist era, so they didn't have enough food, money, any of that stuff. So obviously no one wanted to be fined. So all these babies were born. It was a communist country, so there was no way to take care of all these babies. So what happened was all these babies were placed in institutions and orphanages and labeled the unwanted children. Now, on Christmas Day, December 1989, Ceausescu, the dictator, was killed by the Romanian people. I was born in 1991, just barely over a year after he was killed. My birth mother was unwed, 19 years old, had no support, no money, and no way to take care of me. And by the grace of God and to loving people in America, I was adopted along with another boy from Romania. My family loves adoption. My family has adopted 6 children, 2 from Romania and 4 from Russia. And I have a newly adopted cousin from the Ukraine. Now, I've grown up in a home where adoption is the normal. My family looks like the United Nations, and the Olympics are always quite fun. We always have a little fun banter about whose country is better. I'll let you decide who I pick. So, I've grown up in a home where adoption is the norm and being pro-life is the norm, because I know if my birth mother did not choose life, I would not be here at this podium talking to you guys about why I'm pro-life. And if my birth mother did not have an outlet, adoption, to say my baby is not going to grow up in this poverty-stricken nation, she's going to go have a family who adores her and loves her so much, I would not be on this stage talking to you guys about why I'm pro-life. Pause. So why are you pro-life? I just told you guys in my story one of the many reasons that I'm pro-life. Now, we all have our different reasons. I'm going to name 3 of my quick reasons. First and foremost, because I'm a Christian and because God is pro-life. God created all of life, and I believe that all life is sacred and has value and purpose. As a Christian, I strive to follow everything that God cares about and the things on his heart. So first and foremost, I am pro-life because I'm a Christian. Secondly, I'm pro-life because it saved my life. I am pro-life because my birth mother chose life and my adoptive parents chose to adopt me. Thirdly, I am pro-life because I believe it's the right thing to do. Aside from my Christian faith and the fact that it saved my life, I believe it's the right thing to do. I believe that all people should have the right to live. So those are 3 quick reasons why I'm pro-life. Now, each one of us has different reasons why we are pro-life. It might be your faith in Jesus Christ. It might be your own personal experiences with abortion, with adoption, or anything in between. But my charge to you guys is to use the reasons you are pro-life to win others to be pro-life. We can spout facts all day long, and those facts are wonderful. We have facts on our side and truth on our side. For instance, did you know that in New York City, more black babies are aborted every single day than are born alive? That's a fact. Now, take that fact one step further. Find the mother, the father, the brother, the sister, the grandma who's missing their son, their daughter, their grandbaby because of that black baby being aborted. There's your story. You have the fact, couple it with a story, and you have won. because people can argue with facts all day long, but they can't argue with the fact that my life has God-given purpose, and my life would not be here if a 19-year-old girl 24 years ago did not choose life for me. So I encourage you guys to go out, to use your voice, to use your hands, to write a blog, to write a letter to the editor, whatnot, to use what you personally, uniquely have to win others to the pro-life cause. No one else has your story. No one else has my story. We're all very unique, and that's the beauty of it. We get to be unique because God created us unique, and we get to share our unique stories of why we are pro-life. We're at a pro-life conference, and we get to talk about it, and it's wonderful and so great. But when we walk out these doors, we're going to go back into the real world. We're going to walk back onto Capitol Hill, where we still have laws that we need to change, where 42 years ago at the Supreme Court, a decision was made that I don't like, and I'm trying to change that. But above and beyond the ridicule and the hate that we do get for being pro-life, I encourage you guys to go out with a quote of one of my favorites, William Wilberforce. He says, "If to be feelingly alive to the sufferings of my fellow creatures is to be a fanatic, I am one of the most incurable fanatics ever permitted to be at large." Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea, for sharing your testimony. It's very close to my heart. And I think we are, as pro-lifers, are about life not only before birth, but after birth. And so we must be the ones to support adoption, and whether it's supporting families who have chosen adoption and helping them out, or if we have room in your own heart and home to adopt, we encourage this because this is part of being pro-life. And also, to Chelsea's point about the fact that there are so many people suffering after an abortion, it's not just the mother and the father, it is the grandparents, it is the larger community. And so to reach out to those people, because being pro-life is also to be there for them in their time of healing. We're going to go back on the mall, try this again, see if we have this down. I don't make any promises. But let's go back to Josh.
Ready?
Well, you can tell now that there's a lot more people here, and I can see groups coming from all over the place, but I want to talk to some of these great people here. Where are you guys from?
Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, all right. For one thing, that we've definitely had a warm reception here today, and I think the Lord is definitely shining down on us as the clouds are kind of breaking back. You know, we've talked about the weather a lot today because the fact that this is probably the warmest March for Life I've ever seen. But it's encouraging, too, to see the warm spirit and the energy that's out here as we're talking about this. You've got an interesting sign here. Tell us about that.
I was conceived in rain and almost a couple back in life. And my friend here, Mary, was also conceived in rain. Yeah, my mother has schizophrenia and she was frankly on her way home from work. And this is a big issue in the pro-life movement. What do we do with cases of rape? And so we share our story and say that our life matters and all they should be protected.
Well, that is great. Well, you know, and we're talking to a lot of pro-life bloggers and the work that they're doing out there, voicing their opinions. What would you say to them as you're thinking of these young women who are out there who are making hard choices?
So make sure that you stand up for us. Don't say anything stupid. Just remember that no child deserves the death penalty. Women that find themselves in tough situations choose life for their babies, and we're seeing it more and more. These women that have been raped always choose abortion. Many of them choose adoption for their children, and life really ends up healing them. Abortion just makes the situation much worse.
Well, that's right. Well, life is the best choice, and adoption is a great option as well. So thank you guys so much. You guys ready to march? Yeah! Anybody got their boots on today for the mud? That's right. I think we all need some of those. Well, we're going to send it back to you guys. We'll hope to see you right over here soon, the March for Life.
Josh, and don't be afraid to try new things with digital media. Obviously, you'll find that being involved in this isn't always perfect, but just be out there. And this is what ProLifeCon has been doing since 10 years ago. So we're very happy with Josh and him reporting. Our next guest is Charmaine Yost. She is president and CEO of Americans United for Life. Americans United for Life is the legal architect of the pro-life movement. AUL's legal strategists have been involved in every life-related case brought before the United States Supreme Court, beginning with Roe v. Wade. AUL is the pioneer of the state-based model legislative strategy, which has increased exponentially with significant victories in the past few years. AUL's legal strategy works both to save the lives of the unborn while also confronting the so-called reliance interests adopted by the Supreme Court in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the false idea that women rely on abortion to succeed in American society. Charmaine is also the co-author of The Mother in the Middle, an examination of child care policy, published by HarperCollins, and is currently working on a second book related to modern feminism, with the working title, Women Alone. Please help me welcome Charmaine Yost.
Tonight, President Obama will address the nation in his State of the Union address. But as the most pro-abortion president in history, we are quite certain that he will not report to the nation on an abortion industry that enjoys significant funding from the federal government. Since he won't, Americans United for Life will. Planned Parenthood is Abortion, Inc. They are the largest abortion business in the United States, and every day this abortion business receives $1.26 million taxpayer dollars. And last year they reported a profit of $127 million, while receiving a $528 million tax subsidy. In fact, your tax dollars accounted for at least 40% of Planned Parenthood's total revenue. President Obama will not tell you this. So today, we're releasing a report to share the latest information and our analysis from Planned Parenthood's latest annual report. At Planned Parenthood, abortion is going up, government funding is going up, and everything else is going down. President Obama won't tell you tonight that under Cecile Richards' leadership, Planned Parenthood's cancer screening services have been cut by more than half. In contrast, last year they performed
over 327,000 abortions.
And abortion made up 94% of all their pregnancy-related services. But President Obama won't tell you that either. Using your tax dollars, they are increasing their market share of this gruesome business. They've increased the number of abortions they're performing from 1 out of every 5 abortions to 1 in every 3. Planned Parenthood is Abortion, Inc. In these difficult economic times, how much is that worth? Since Barack Obama became president, Planned Parenthood has reported over $510 million in profit. At the same time, Planned Parenthood has taken in $3 billion tax dollars, your tax dollars. Will President Obama tell you that?
Thank you, Planned Parenthood. God bless you.
I don't think so.
Gosh, and I was right. Hey, it is so great to be with you guys today. When I got the email about the fact that this is the 10th anniversary of the Pro-Life BlogCon, I was really excited because I don't know if they mentioned that I was here for the first one, and I'm always really anxious anywhere I go to take credit for bringing Jared. No, not for the BlogCon, but for bringing Jared to Washington D.C. Yay, these many years ago. I don't think either he or I want to actually confess how many years ago it was now, but. In any way, I wanted to start with the video because I've been asked to talk about how you can make a difference online, and what pro-life activism looks like, and how the new media can be useful in making the pro-life case. So I'm going to get to that. But I don't think anybody's going to be too upset if I deviate a little bit from my prepared remarks to talk a little bit about the unusual situation we find ourselves in this morning. Anybody mind if I address that? Anybody feeling a little bit down, a little discouraged about what we will go up to? Anybody? Yeah, Jill, I kind of thought there might be a few people. So let me talk about that just a little bit. Number one, the first point I want to make to you is that if anyone needed a reminder, we got one last night, which is that politics ain't beanbag. Politics ain't beanbag. It's an old saying from people who like the rough and tumble of this business. And frankly, it's what we signed on for those of us who work in this business. And you never know what's going to happen, and you have to be prepared in politics to take some setbacks. You got to be prepared to come back and to dig in and to say, and here's point number 2, we have a long-term strategy in this fight that is winning. That's the number one message I want you to hear from me today. If you're feeling a little bit down, I want you to remember that our strategy is winning. And we are gathering momentum, accumulating victories, and restoring a culture of life in this country today. Now, how do I know this? I want you to be thinking about this all day today, because we're all going to leave from here and go out to the march. And what are you going to see when you get out there on the National Capitol Mall? Everywhere I turn in the media today and interacting with the abortion lobby, what we hear, sometimes under the radar, but sometimes just straight up, the abortion lobby is worrying about millennials. They are worrying to death about millennials. And so while they are worrying about millennials, we are marching with them. If you're going to quote me from anything, please, let me just say that again. While the abortion lobby is worrying about millennials, we are marching with them. A few years ago, I know all of you guys remember Nancy Keenan writing an article about how she was struck getting off the metro over here at Union Station. She wrote, "I couldn't believe I got off the metro and I was surrounded by young people." Well, if you go to an abortion march, you are not surrounded by young people, but we are, because this is a young movement, because young people understand social justice. They understand inequity. They understand that their mission as young people is to bring their passion and their enthusiasm to defending the defenseless and to giving a voice to those who don't have it. Our mission in the pro-life movement is to be about human rights for human beings, and this is the social justice movement of our day. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little worked up because I want everybody to be encouraged today, because we're the ones who have momentum on our side. Not only are we the ones who are marching with the millennials, my next point is that the abortion lobby right now is back on their heels. They are back on their heels. They are putting up closed signs on abortion mills all across this country, from sea to shining sea. That's what this march is about today. We pass clinic regulations, they cry foul, and they say, all of a sudden we have to have clean clinics. Well, what happens? They have to close because they refuse to comply with the most basic medical requirements. They've been operating in this country for far too long, unregulated, unsupervised, and unrepentant. And finally, the chickens are coming home to roost. They can't, frankly, let's be honest, and this is where social media comes in, because they're talking all the time about how unfair it is that they have to close their doors. Don't let them get away with that. They could stay open if they would do business in a normal, humane way, but they refuse to. And why? Ask the question why. Why will they not? It's because operating according to normal, average, everyday expectations is too expensive for them. They don't want to spend any money giving women decent health care. So let me transition then into closing with some real specifically how social media fits into this. How social media fits into this, I was listening to one person writing about their projections for the 2016 election, and they made a comment that really kind of struck me. You know, our world is changing so fast that sometimes we don't even realize it when we're in the midst of it. But if you think back to the last election, the last presidential election, we had nowhere near the rapid response that we do now. Think about how Twitter has exploded in the last 4 years. Just absolutely exploded. We have tools to combat the awesome and ridiculous resources that $3 billion under Barack Obama has given Planned Parenthood. They do have significant resources and rapid response. But, you know, it doesn't cost you anything hardly other than the cost of your iPhone to respond on Twitter and to take those 140 characters and get the truth out there. Please, we started with this video because this is a classic example of the kind of work that we can do out there now of getting the truth out there. I would just straight up ask you, please retweet this video. Please retweet the information that's in there. $510 million in profit to Planned Parenthood alone under Barack Obama. $3 billion in tax subsidy. Get that information out there. You have the tools at your hand, and we need your partnership. We have an entire report that our attorneys have scoured through, the Planned Parenthood annual report, and have looked at the trends. Did you know before this morning that under Cecile Richards' leadership, cancer screenings have been cut in half? They've been cut in half. So the next time you see Cecile Richards out there claiming to be a defender of women's health and a defender of women getting cancer screenings, ask the question, why are you cutting cancer screening services at Planned Parenthood and claiming to be at the forefront of providing women's health? Put the data out there. Put it in their face. Ask them questions. I want to remind you actually of something that I find is really, really effective in social media. You make an assertion, and they're going to push back, but ask them a question. Force them to answer the question that you want to know the answer to. And then finally, because I'm out of time, tell stories. Tell stories. Social media is the perfect place to get stories out there. Honestly, we need to, I went to grad school and studied statistics because I believe in public policy. I believe in numbers. I like numbers. But let's be honest, numbers are never going to change people's real hearts. So at the same time you're engaging their brains with the numbers and getting the facts and figures out there, always, always remember that at the end of the day, engaging people's hearts is telling people stories. Telling people stories. So use your social media to engage with people in a humane and human way and connect with them about real life experiences. And finally, and my very last point is, abortion harms, it destroys a baby, and it damages a woman. And those are the stories we need to get out there because the abortion lobby has been very successful over the last several decades at driving a wedge between the pro-life movement and women. They have successfully characterized us as being only about the baby while they are the defenders of women's health. We need your help in social media and online to actively and aggressively confront that myth and to show it for the myth that it is. The pro-life movement has always been about women. And not only are the millennials coming alongside us, but women who have been hurt and damaged by abortion are as well. And that is why we have so much dynamism in this movement, so much energy, because our ranks are continually refreshed and growing while theirs are diminishing every day. So, yeah, we're upset about what happened, but be encouraged. Be encouraged because we are the ones who are building momentum and they are running scared. And I am so grateful to you guys for taking the time to be here and investing your time, your talents, your treasure in marching for life. Thank you. No, I am actually going down, but I saw that Tony Perkins just walked in. Hi, Tony, and thank you so much for doing this and for, giving your resources here to this great event. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine, for your zeal and your fire, and for the example that you are to us, and for all the work you do for the pro-life movement. Our next guest is Roland Warren, an inspirational servant leader with a heart for Christ and a mind for business. After 20 years in the corporate world, Roland spent 11 years as president of National Fatherhood Initiative before joining CareNet in 2012 as president and CEO. Roland is also the author of the book Bad Dads of the Bible, a fresh look at how some of the most revered men of the Bible made some major fathering mistakes that all dads can learn from. Here is Roland Warren. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Whoa, that's pretty weak. I got low self-esteem. I need more than that. Let's try that again. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right. Good. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's the reason why you didn't respond. Duh. That's right. I've moved ahead. So good morning. Thank you very much. All right. Anyway, great to be with you. Delighted to be here today. And I want to just start off and just read you just a couple of points to kind of get started. So here's the first one. Men need to be supported and empowered to make life-affirming decisions, just as women do. The church has to realize that being pro-life includes supporting those facing unplanned pregnancies. We present women and men with alternatives to abortion so that they can choose life for their unborn children and abundant life for their families. Life decisions need life support, and the church is God's instrument to provide life support to women, men, and families to choose life. Now, can anybody tell me what those four statements have in common? Anyone? It's a trick question. Actually, they're all less than 144 characters. 140 characters, rather. Right? So these are all tweets that, that CareNet has put out. We've done thousands of tweets. And, for me, this conversation is about social media, but I've got to say, for me, I'm more focused on the social part than the media part. I'm more focused right now on the content than the containers. I mean, containers change. I mean, we use phones, we use all kinds of different technologies, but it's the content that's most important. And what I'm hopeful to do at the time that I have is to talk more about the content of what's the kind of messages that we need to be sending out. So last year, CareNet went through a strategic planning process, and in that process, we came up with a new vision and a new mission. And I'm going to read our vision statement for you. CareNet envisions a culture where women and men faced with pregnancy decisions are transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ and empowered to choose life for their unborn children and abundant life for their families. So the three sound bites are choose Jesus, choose life, choose family. Okay? Our mission. Acknowledging that all human life begins at conception and is worthy of protection, CareNet offers compassion, hope, and help to anyone considering abortion by offering realistic alternatives and Christ-centered support through our life-affirming network of pregnancy centers, organizations, and individuals. So the reason I want to start with that is because hopefully what you're seeing in here is a narrative that's creating something that's bigger than pro-life. And what I mean by that is that we have to be more than just pro-life. We have to be pro-abundant life. And then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what does abundant life look like to a baby? You see, a doctor can deliver a baby like Kermit Gosnell delivered babies in Philadelphia and then end the life. That's life, but not abundant life. Or the doctor can deliver a baby and hand him to a single mom. And I grew up with a single mom. I understand very, very clearly how difficult that can be for mothers and for kids. Is that better than abortion? Well, absolutely, of course. No question about it. But is that really abundant life as God designed? Or the doctor can deliver that baby and hand that baby to a father and mother united in marriage, loving each other and loving their child. That's abundant life. And how do we know that? We know that because that's the story of Mary and Joseph. That's the story of Christ. You see, from Mary and Joseph's perspective, Jesus was unplanned. They had hopes and dreams and aspirations, all of these things that didn't include a baby. And God had a plan to make sure that Mary's unplanned pregnancy wasn't a crisis pregnancy. You see, the Holy Family was Holy Family, a father and mother united in marriage, loving each other and loving their child. See, and so when I start to look at the issue and I look at how we're talking about the issue, my view is we've got to be expanding the content here. It's not just about saving a baby. It's about raising a child. And so when we're using social media and all these different platforms, we have to be focused on expanding that vision. I mean, when you think about it, folks on the other side say, all we care about is, saving babies. And, we kind of respond to that because they frame the issue that it's a woman's issue plus a question mark. And the question mark could be product of conception, then it could be choice, and now Planned Parenthood says it's complicated. It's just complicated. It's a woman plus something complicated. It's just complicated. And in a sense, we almost respond to that. Well, no, it's about babies, and then we got sort of attacked, saying, well, you don't care about women. We said, no, we care about women and babies, and we said, love them both. And the reality is that when you look at it from God's perspective, when you look at our issue from that perspective, it's bigger than that. Yes, it's about the woman. Yes, it's about the baby. But it's about the father and it's about the family. And we need to have a very consistent narrative in terms of what we're talking about. So when you're thinking about, communicating, I don't care if it's social media, whatever platform, the social message that we need to be putting out into the public square that's winsome, that's engaging, and that's true, and that's supported by God's design, it has to be a message that articulates a vision beyond just saving babies, but it's also about building families. I mean, you look at the data, 85% of the women have abortion that are unmarried. 85%. What's that tell you? This is all linked to marriage. We can't silo our issues. We have to have a consistent narrative. Now, the last place I'm going to end with, because I only got a few minutes left here, is to talk about how do we do that. Now, I'm in the pregnancy center business, so to speak, and that's the work that we do. But it's beyond our work, because the reality is that there's an instrument that God put on this earth designed for this issue, and it's the church. And what we have to do in terms of our conversation, the church can't outsource this issue to the pregnancy center movement, to the pro-life movement. See, James 1:26-27 says, the religion that is pure and faultless in God's sight, what did you care for widows and orphans, right? Well, when that was written, what was a widow? What was a mother without a husband? And what was an orphan? It was a child without a father. So in a sense, we're in the widow and orphan business, and what we're doing as a parachurch ministry is working to help the church understand that is religion as pure and faultless, and we have to move this issue into the church to provide that level of support, because that's the only way you're going to be able to create that narrative that expands the scope of our work from just saving babies, as God-honoring as important as it is, but to also to building strong families for those babies to grow up in. So again, to me, it's all about the content. The containers will change. We tweet now, who knows what we'll be doing 20 years from now. But what's the content that we're going to be putting out? And I really believe strongly that it's time for a new day and a new beginning in terms of how we're talking about this issue, that we have to expand the scope. And we have right there the birth of Christ, which is the model for what we need to do. See, Christ had abundant life and became abundant life for us all. And that abundant life narrative is one that's built around this notion of the family as God designed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roland, for your wise words and your service to women and children and families. Next, we have Family Research Council's president, Tony Perkins, our fearless leader in defense of life, family, freedom. And with that, I would like to bring him up to the stage and introduce him.
Thank you. Isn't Arena doing a great job today? Thank you, Arena. So glad to have you on our team. Well, I want to welcome all of you here to the Family Research Council. I'm not quite the caboose. There's one that comes behind me. You'll get a chance to meet him in just a moment. But I have a privilege here today to doing one of the special things here. Before I get to that, I want to tell you how proud I am of my team here at the Family Research Council for conceiving of the ProLifeCon and raising it to the point that it's now 10 years old. And it is now one of the largest online pro-life events surrounding the March for Life. And I'm just grateful for the team here and putting this out and letting people all across the country participate in the events here in Washington, D.C. on this special day. So all of you out there across America, welcome here to the Family Research Council. Glad you could be a part of this. You know, my record as an elected official and as the head of FRC is pretty clear. I'm passionate about life, but I think the best evidence of my passion for life is my wife and 5 children. And my second oldest is with me here this morning, Rachel. She's here with me in Washington for the march today, so I'm glad that I will not be marching alone. There'll be her and about 600,000 other people marching with me today. Look, I understand the pressures of having to navigate through the finer aspects and the details of legislation. And I know a lot has been said today about what has transpired in the last 24 hours. And the old adage is true that the devil is in the details, and that could not be truer than when it comes to making laws. But there's also a saying about making laws is like making sausage. There's a lot of truth in that one, too. But let me go back to the devil in the details. I was going to say go back to Congress, but I don't want to get the devil and the Congress mixed up. He might be offended. Let me be clear. Abortion is an evil. Yes, the devil is in the details, but abortion is an evil that haunts America's conscience, and it's time that we make it right. Now, I'm very disappointed that a handful of GOP women caused a stampede that forced leadership to delay a vote on the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Act. I do hope that the constituents of these members of Congress, like Renee Elmers and Charlie Dent and Jackie Walorski, communicate and express their disappointment for them working at the last moment, literally, to undermine a bill that the House has already passed once before in its exact same language. America is just one of a handful of nations. Now keep this in context. We're talking about abortion at the 5th month. America is only one of a handful of nations that allows abortion through the entire 9 months of pregnancy. That's reprehensible. Now, I am not timid, those of you who track FRC, I'm not timid about taking on GOP leadership when necessary. But in this case, I commend the House leadership for shifting to H.R. 7, No Taxpayer Funding of Abortion Act, which follows through with a major GOP campaign pledge to get taxpayers out of the abortion funding business. The GOP leadership, the House leadership, did not abandon the pro-life effort today. They put forth another measure that more members of Congress actually campaigned on. And it is one that is long overdue to take taxpayers, to take Americans out of the abortion funding business. No American should be forced to violate their religious beliefs or their moral conscience by government-mandated funding of abortion. Now, upon the House approval of H.R. 7, the Senate must immediately take this measure up and send it to the President and send him a message that Americans are tired of being a part of his and Planned Parenthood's scheme to end innocent life here in America. Now, let me transition because I have a privilege here this morning, a duty and a privilege to present the inaugural Digital Pro-Life Pioneer Award. Now, coming up on the 10th anniversary, as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of ProLifeCon, the use of digital technology, which we were expanding today with some success on the mall with Josh Duggar. We're constantly trying new things, and we want to use technology. It's also an opportunity to recognize those who have been pioneers in using this technology. A nurse from Illinois didn't just turn into one of the most prominent pro-life bloggers by accident. Pioneers see opportunities, and they forge ahead for their cause no matter the cost. It's what built America. We're pioneers. It's what will take the pro-life cause forward, pioneers. Well, when Jill Stanek saw the atrocities happening at the hospital where she worked, as she discovered aborted babies who survived the procedure being left to die, she took her discovery public, an action that ultimately cost her job. Suddenly, Thrust into the forefront of the life debate, it wasn't long before Jill saw the potential of emerging online technologies as a platform to wage the battle for the sanctity of human life. Through her tenacity for the cause of life, Jill has made her popular blog, JillStanek.com, the hub for digital pro-life activity. And always generous in giving others a platform, Jill is instrumental in fostering other voices within the movement. This very conference, in fact, ProLifeCon, would be a mere shadow of what it is today if it were not for the support from Jill from the very outset. And always the pioneer, Jill hasn't stopped looking for new ways to advance the pro-life message online, launching the StanekReport.com last year. Now, Jill is frankly no stranger to awards and accolades in the pro-life movement. But when we thought of the significance of this event, its reach across the country, and its use of technology to pioneer into the next generation, we could not think of a better candidate to present the first ever Digital Pro-Life Pioneer Award than to Jill Stanek. Jill, would you come up front? Let me read this. In recognition of your groundbreaking work in the digital pro-life community, your faithfulness and visionary leadership, and your commitment to protect the very smallest and the weakest in our society, together we grieve the lost lives, celebrate the lives protected, and cheerfully fight for generations yet unborn.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I am just so honored that FRC thought to give me this award, and I've always been fascinated by pioneers and the Old West spirit and dreaming of being on a wagon train and on the Lewis and Clark expedition, and so to be considered a pioneer of anything is just so exciting to me. But it also makes me feel a little old, because aren't pioneers kind of always old? But when you think about it, I launched my blog in 2005, and that may just be 10 years ago, but on the internet, it's like dog years. It's like 70 years, because ProLifeCon launched in 2005, Facebook launched in 2004, Twitter launched in 2006, and YouTube just launched in 2005. So in the last 10 years, the journalism world has been revolutionized. And we have had such a great opportunity to surmount the mainstream liberal media, which is so pro-abortion, go around them, go through them to get the word out. And you know that back in the day, they were in complete control of the messaging, and that's actually why I got into blogging, just out of frustration. But now we have been showing success, and I think the online movement is one major reason why the polls are trending. You know, ever since 1995, when Gallup first began polling Americans on the pro-life, pro-choice question, Americans had said that they were pro-choice by and large. In fact, the first year, 95, only 33% of Americans said they were pro-life, and 56% said that they were pro-abortion. But in 2009, those numbers flipped. And since 2009, 6 out of 9 Gallup polls have shown pro-lifers. There are more pro-lifers in the U.S. than pro-choicers, and I think that it's in large part, or in some part, due to the efforts of online journalists. And so, for instance, today in this room, thanks to ProLifeCon, there I know was at least one journalist from Cosmopolitan and one from Bloomberg, and I'm sure that there were others around, and you know, they are paying attention to us now because we are getting our messaging out in the media. And in closing, you know, this is a poignant day because of the 20-week ban. You know, the whole reason that I'm even here is because of a 21-weeker who I held, an abortion survivor. And so I know that these babies feel pain. And so even though, it's good that the Republicans substituted and are still putting forth something, it was a terrible blow to have lost this opportunity. And so on behalf of the little baby that I held, I accept this award and will keep on fighting. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jill. It is very well deserved for all the work you've done for the pro-life movement. We really thank you and appreciate all that you have done. Going along with what Tony had said about the abortion funding and the bill that is being set to vote on today, it will stop taxpayer money from going to pay for abortions. And as it stands, and if you go visit ObamacareAbortion.com, which is the joint project of Family Research Council and Charlotte Lozier Institute, you will see that at least 1,036 plans cover and fund abortion with your money, with taxpayer money. And we want this stopped. In addition, the bill today is also the Abortion Full Disclosure Act, meaning we have a right to know what's in these plans up front before we buy the plans. And so I encourage you to continue putting pressure on the health insurance companies in your state, on your legislators, so that we can know what's in these plans. And please share the Obamacare abortion with your friends and family so that they can make a decision based on that information on what plans they can get, which are pro-life. Our next guest is Senator James Lankford. Senator James Lankford is committed to protecting our freedom, fighting for an efficient and transparent federal government, and ensuring our nation remains a world leader. He worked toward these ideals in the U.S. House of Representatives, and as a U.S. Senator, he will remain tenaciously committed to helping our nation reach North American energy independence, getting our nation's fiscal house in order, and protecting religious freedom around the world. Before James's time in Congress, he served as director of the Falls Creek Youth Camp, the largest youth camp in the United States. After serving 4 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, James was elected to the U.S. Senate on November 4th, 2014, to finish the 2 remaining years of retiring Senator Tom Coburn. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our final speaker, Senator James Lankford.
Well, good morning. For everyone here, you may need to stand and stretch your legs, but you probably won't need to stretch your fingers. As I sit in the crowd, I hear the click, click, click of everyone blogging and taking notes on it. And for those folks that are joining us online, welcome to this ongoing part of this conversation. It's my honor to get a chance to be here, not only to stand with you, but also with FRC and with Tony and what's happening in so many places. I, as well, have 2 daughters, and my bride and I, my 2 daughters, have been very, very engaged in the pro-life movement for years. 22 years in ministry and working with students. We dealt with a lot of issues and walked through a lot of family issues and crisis over the years. But what's amazing is at the end of it is to always come back to one simple thing. Is that a child or not? If it's a child, it changes everything. And so that ongoing part of that conversation, as Tony mentioned, that cheerful, happy warrior part of us comes back again over and over again to this one simple question. If that's a child, then our Declaration of Independence begins with this statement about life, that's what we're all about. If it's about our faith and how money is spent from taxpayer dollars, then our First Amendment begins with a protection of faith. So these critical foundational elements we come back to over and over again. Now, they may sound philosophical to some people, so we come back again to the most basic thing. Is it a child or is it not? That's a child, and it's a child worthy of protection. So let me say a couple things to you. One is thank you for what you do all the time. You work for people you will never see and never meet, and you make a big difference. What Jill said is absolutely correct. I've served over 22 years in ministry, and I have watched the transition among students. And I'll tell you a little bit of why I think some of that is. The transitions over students over the last 20-some-odd years to watch students become progressively more and more pro-life as they speak to their parents who are more pro-choice, and the child responds back to know that they really are convinced that's a child. That did not happen because they watched more TV at night. That did not happen because they read most of the newspapers. That happened because of the work of many of you and the people that engaged them, and the fact that they could actually see for the first time, often in sonograms with greater and greater detail, and to see a life that's moving around in there. I can remember, as some of you can as well, in the health class, I will never forget the picture that I saw in the health class in high school that had the picture of the chicken egg and the picture of the fetus, and said, here are the two that are developing at this stage, they are the same. And for whatever reason, even as an early high schooler, I looked at that and I thought, a chicken developing in an egg and a human being are the same at that stage? And I've never forgotten looking at that picture and thinking, we're just equating that tissue to be thrown away. Not so anymore. The ongoing conversation's happening, and that voice is getting out. So I want to say thank you to that. Let me just mention a couple things to you, just as an encouragement for all of us that are fighting through this together. Here are some challenges that I would set in front of you as you begin to push a fresh new year again. In the pro-life years, we count years based on the March for Life, right? So this begins a new year of the work again. As we begin through the year again, let me encourage you in a couple of ways. What you do online, continue to press for volunteers to be engaged in crisis pregnancy centers, hope pregnancy centers, whatever term your state and your region uses. Continue to encourage volunteers to be engaged in that. Continue to encourage people to be able to donate and to give. There are individuals that are losing traction in some of those places. They've existed now for years, and that transition is occurring in many of those clinics and many of those places that are giving free sonograms, and all those folks that are standing up. Some of the original leadership that has taken it 10, 15, 20 years is now trying to hand that off. Help them. Encourage more volunteers. Encourage people that feel like I could never be like that to understand, yes, they could. God will equip them and prepare them. And the passion that has been given to them is to be used. So encourage the next generation of volunteers to step in and to be able to lead on those face-to-face conversations. Encourage folks to be able to donate and to be able to get engaged in that, including donating the sonogram equipment. All of us in this room and online all know extremely well, once a person looks inside the womb and they see that child, everything changes. So for all those different Hope Pregnancy Centers and locations that are still trying to raise funds and to do that, walk alongside them. Help them in that journey. Help people look inside the womb and see what God is knitting together. And for the first time to be able to bond with someone they felt but not seen. Help them in that process. Stay involved. I would say to you, don't lose hope. There is much to be hopeful for, and there's a great deal that's still going on. But continue to focus in on the most basic of elements, as I mentioned before, that child. I was on a very popular Christian MSNBC program not long ago with a gentleman named Chris Matthews. He wanted to talk about the abortion issues. So I came on his program, and it was another person that was on there that was tenaciously pro-abortion, and we talked back and forth for a while, and I smiled and continued to talk about the child, and smiled and continued to talk about the child, and at the end of it, Chris Matthews said to me, "You're a very articulate spokesman for your point of view." And then it was over a year before I was ever invited on another one of his programs. And at the end of it, I had several of the staff that I work around, and it's such a tremendous group I get to serve with, that asked me about that one comment. And I kept thinking about it. To just stay focused on the importance of that child made a difference. And even in a program that's tenaciously liberal, they can't walk away from that one key issue. Stay on target on that. Let's stay cheerful in what we do. Let's stay on focus on that. A couple other things. We continue to press in on the religious liberty issues. Don't lose track of that. In Oklahoma, there's a tiny little craft store called Hobby Lobby that's based there. You might have heard of it. There's a little bit of a conversation that's happened around the entire country based on Hobby Lobby. I know the Green family well. They're quiet, hard-working family that literally started the Hobby Lobby in a little shop with dad and mom and the boys actually hand cutting out frames to start a little frame shop. And they still run their business as Hobby Lobby the same way they always have. The family still runs it. It's not a big giant public company. It's a big giant family business. But they're still running it with the same family and the same principles, and the guys that were actually cutting things out now have a nicer desk, and they're inside in a desk not cutting out frames. But they're still running the company the same way. The question came up about Hobby Lobby and pressing them specifically on their religious liberty issues. Can any administration in the United States, can any administration look at a company and as the owners of that company and say, I know you have a religious faith. We disagree with how you practice your faith. You will change your faith practice to ours, or we'll shut your company down. Now, that was the argument with Hobby Lobby, because you know well, if Hobby Lobby chose not to provide insurance at all, their fine was $2,000 a person. If they chose to provide full insurance, except for the abortifacients, their fine is $36,500 per person per year, which would shut down the company, and everyone knew it. So the argument was, can they force, that is the federal government, into a company for them to change their religious practice to the preferences of the administration? Thankfully, the Supreme Court stood with us. The difficult part for us is 4 of the 9 said yes. The administration does have the ability to step in and tell a group of individuals, you can practice your faith on weekends, but you can't practice your faith during the week. So we continue to rise up. We speak out not only for the child, but we should speak out for religious liberty. And quite frankly, I would say to us, I'm a Christian. I come from a biblical worldview. But we speak out for all faiths to be able to live out their faith practice. It's vital to us to be able to speak out and to say, because we want our faith protected in the days ahead. A couple other things that you can do to help us in this. Continue to push in ways that are fresh ways to be able to articulate the message. You are going to have some great ideas. Spread them. You have illustrations. You have ideas. Some of the ideas and the statements that have been made for years, people get tired of repeating them. They've said them over and over and over again. So you're geniuses. You're creative. Go find creative new ideas. A couple of months ago, I was on the floor of the House of Representatives giving a speech, and I was talking about Kermit Gosnell, the gut-wrenching abortionist who literally delivered children and then killed them. Now, after he delivered children and then killed them, he literally took them, delivered them, flipped them over, snipped the spinal cord, and moved them just a couple feet and then set the body aside. For those instances where he fully delivered a child, snipped the spinal cord, he was convicted of murder and is now in prison. But for the instances where he kept them in the same spot and killed them inside the womb, same age, same development of child, that was considered entirely appropriate. So I went to the floor of the House of Representatives and I took a measuring device and I said what the court said today was the difference between a life and not a life is about 36 inches. Because if Kermit Gosnell killed the child right there on the table, it's fine. But if he delivered them, turned, and killed them right here, it was murder. So the redefinition by the court was that life is not age, life is not weight, life is not size, life was distance. Move them from here to there, it's a death. I couldn't find anyone on the floor of the House of Representatives that day, and there were many that were actually seated, one of those rare moments of people actually on the floor. I couldn't find anyone on the floor that could disagree with me. How can life be defined by distance? If they're there, it's not a life. If they're there, they are. 36 inches of distance doesn't make a life. Now that's my illustration for that day. You've got a bunch. Keep advancing ideas out there. New ways to be able to articulate the message that people of all perspectives can look at and say, okay, just answer this one simple question. Why is it not a life there, and it is a life there? It's murder 36 inches, but over there, it's perfectly acceptable. Do it again. Keep pushing in those ways. We need the help. Keep telling the stories. We need the help. And I would encourage you to continue encouraging people that are even 90% with us. I have to tell you, I get a chance to serve around some people that many in this room would say we're pushing them farther to the right. We're pushing them and encouraging them to move farther to the right. I would tell you, I would smile at you and say, some of the people you're pushing farther to the right, take that vote, and then when they explain it, do damage to our cause. Because they don't live it and breathe it. They don't think about it all the time. And they have a difficult time articulating it after the fact. Push the people who are with us 100%. Encourage them to get out there and to be able to speak the message. But for those that are with us at 90%, bless and encourage them. Help them move. But I would encourage you not to push them to get out front, because they don't always articulate in a way that helps us long term. Just an idea. I've got a couple minutes that I can take a couple of questions, and then I think we're about to close down this great conversation. So let me take a couple questions if you have them, and then we'll go from there. Yes, ma'am. By the way, the best scarf in the room.
Thank you. Assuming that the measure passes in the House today, what are your forecasts for it in the Senate?
My hope would be that we would file it immediately and start the process on that. I have not heard yet from Leader McConnell on a date to assign to that. Quite frankly, we're fairly backed up right now with a lot of stuff. We've spent 2.5 weeks on the Keystone Bill, which is a fascinating journey on this. But I would hope we would get it filed, and I have heard from Leader McConnell. He has been talking about it.
The timing isn't so much of concern to me as, do you think that there's 60 votes, or do you think that 60 votes are gettable, and is getting to 60 votes something that we could be helpful with in psyching people up?
In my long experience in the Senate of 2.5 weeks, I don't know where we are yet in the Senate. I know the House very, very well, and what we can accomplish and can't accomplish there. Even things as simple as I mentioned the Keystone. A lot of folks say the Keystone's a slam dunk. The House doesn't even have a veto-proof majority for the Keystone. So it's an interesting path on some of that. I don't know where we are yet on the Senate. And on the days ahead, I'm going to try to find out. And we're doing some quick whip checks and some things just to be able to get a feel for that. But the hope is to continue to press this issue. It's not, the president doesn't want to talk about it in the terms that we talk about because you can't defend it. We have another question? We don't. With that, I'm going to pass the microphone back over. Let me just say one more time to you, thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work. We need your help. As this group knows extremely well, we live in a representative republic, which means the people like me that get the opportunity to vote represent millions of people at home who are actually putting it into practice. So I promise we'll do our job, and I know that you're going to do yours. So keep up the great work. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Senator Lankford, for your words. I have a few things to say about what we should do now. We're about ready to go out to the march. Number one, pray that the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion and the Abortion Insurance Full Disclosure Act pass the House today. Also, we are not giving up on the pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act. We are not. We're going to continue fighting for it. There are at least 13,000 unborn children who die after 20 weeks every single year, and we're going to fight for those children to have a chance at life. And so we're going to be back on that. And also, the state has a compelling interest to protect the lives of children who can feel pain. As we finish, I'd encourage you to go out there and tweet and Facebook and YouTube and blog and continue to be a voice for life out there, and come back next year for our ProLifeCon 2016. Now let's get out there and march.